Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Marie Carlson. In 1974, a baby girl named Marie was born in the Philippines to an ordinary family. Concerned about her daughter's future, Marie's mother made the difficult decision to send her to the United States, where she believed Marie would have better opportunities for success. As a result, Marie was placed in a foster family with a military background, where she met a young girl named Esther, who was the same age as her. Two young girls quickly became close friends, unaware of a surprising fact that linked them together. What Marie didn't know was that her American foster father was actually her biological parent, making Esther her biological sister. As they grew older, the sisters left their parents' house and decided to start a new life together. They chose to settle in Florida, where they rented a cozy apartment near a karaoke club that soon became their favorite hangout spot. Marie Carlson's life was a vibrant reflection of her favorite color, pink. She had always believed that living a beautiful life was essential, surrounding herself with flowers and lovely things. But everything changed when she met Jeff, and she discovered a new, profound meaning in life: love. They quickly fell for each other, got married, and had a daughter named Paris, a name that symbolized the love and beauty they shared. Despite their happy family life, Jeff remained an enigma. His past and last name were shrouded in mystery. Meanwhile, Marie was driven to succeed in her career. She had set her sights on joining the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and was studying criminal law to achieve her goal. However, her journey was not without its challenges. As she progressed in her career, the obstacles grew tougher, and despite her best efforts, Marie ultimately left the police service without realizing her dream. Marie's life took a devastating turn due to a mental health disorder that worsened over time. The trauma of being sexually abused as a child left her with deep emotional scars. As a result, her daily life became increasingly painful, and her relationship with her husband, Jeff, began to suffer. The love they once shared started to fade, and their marriage eventually ended in divorce. The divorce was a difficult but necessary decision, as both Marie and Jeff knew they needed to prioritize their daughter, Paris. They agreed that it would be best for Paris to live with Jeff, allowing her to escape the negativity that had been affecting their home. Despite the challenges, they completed the necessary paperwork amicably and with minimal drama. Throughout the long and difficult divorce process, Marie and Jeff remained dedicated to making decisions that would benefit and care for their daughter, Paris. They remained on good terms and continued to care for each other as friends. Marie was grateful for Jeff's support and made it a priority to spend quality time with Paris, never missing a birthday. Marie had faced many challenges, but she remained determined and refused to surrender. Despite her struggles, she never lost hope. One day, she discovered what had been missing in her life: faith. This newfound faith led her to the Emerald Coast Church, founded by the charismatic pastor James Flanders and his wife Tanya. From the moment she stepped into the church, Marie felt a sense of belonging. The warm and welcoming atmosphere, combined with Pastor James Flanders' sincere and heartfelt sermons, made her feel at home. Marie began the process of recovering and healing from her past experiences, working to make amends and move forward. The Flanders, known for their kindness and generosity, had created a sanctuary where people could find help and support. For Marie, the church became more than just a place of worship. It was a loving community that accepted her with open arms. As she surrounded herself with the church's loving atmosphere, Marie began to heal and grow. With each passing day, Marie felt a sense of freedom and joy that she had never known before. She was no longer the lost and broken person she once was. Instead, she was a strong and vibrant individual, filled with hope and happiness. As she looked out at the sunny Florida landscape, Marie's eyes shone with a newfound radiance, reflecting the beauty and joy that had blossomed in her soul. The church was more than just a building. it was a community of people who genuinely cared for one another. For Marie, this small community became a second family, filled with love, light, and faith. From the outside, the church appeared ordinary, but inside, it felt like a warm and welcoming home. The people gathered there were united by their shared faith, and time seemed to stand still as they came together. Marie, however, was hiding a secret. She was pregnant, and the weight of this secret was crushing her. She felt ashamed and fearful, and only a few close people knew the truth. In June 2021, at the age of 37, Marie gave birth to her second daughter, Grace. As the news spread through the quiet town, people began to wonder who the father of the child was. The truth was painful. The father was a man Marie had been dating briefly, but he had turned out to be abusive and hurtful. When Marie became pregnant, he disappeared without a word. Left alone and broken, Marie found solace in the church. The Flanders family and the local community showed Marie and her newborn daughter overwhelming kindness and acceptance. They provided a safe and nurturing environment, filling a vital need in Marie's life by becoming like a substitute family. Through their selfless support, Marie was able to find the courage, optimism, and start the healing process from the trauma of her past. Marie had been feeling trapped in her life, and just 3 months after giving birth to her daughter, she made a shocking decision that left everyone stunned. She posted a mysterious message on social media announcing that she was leaving, not just her city, but also her family and friends behind. Marie had been secretly planning her escape, careful not to reveal her intentions to anyone, fearing they would try to talk her out of it. She only hinted at her dreams and expressed her love for her loved ones, making it clear that she was leaving for good. Her departure left many questions unanswered. Where was she going? What path would she take? And would she achieve her dreams? Marie's loved ones were devastated, worried sick about her safety and unsure of what to do next. The uncertainty surrounding her disappearance only added to their anxiety. Jeff, Marie's ex-husband, was particularly frantic and decided to contact the police to help find her. As the days passed, the worry and fear for Marie's fate only intensified. Marie's sudden disappearance from Fort Walton Beach had barely stopped making headlines when a disturbing revelation emerged. She had left behind her 3-month-old daughter. This news sparked immediate concern from Marie's sister, Esther, who knew her siblings' devotion to her children. "This is out of character for her," Esther said, her voice shaking. "She's always been extremely protective of her kids." Those who knew Marie were shocked by her disappearance. As a mother, she had always been exemplary, particularly with her 7-year-old daughter, Paris. Marie's ex-husband, Jeff, was especially stunned when he learned that she had stopped visiting Paris, as they had been inseparable. Now, at 37, Marie had vanished without a trace. While she had the right to start anew, the police couldn't ignore the fact that she had left her young child behind. The police analyzed Marie's recent messages and discovered a peculiar aspect. Her writing style had changed significantly from before. This led them to suspect that she might be under duress or that the messages were fabricated. An investigation was launched, which soon impacted Marie's personal life. Questions arose about the identity of her daughter Grace's father and the nature of their relationship with Marie. However, even Marie's sister Esther was unable to confirm or deny these suspicions. The police were faced with a complex web of secrets surrounding Marie's disappearance, including the mysterious messages and the uncertainty about Grace's father. In an effort to clarify the situation, the police spoke with Tanya and James Flanders. They revealed that Marie had a history of disappearing temporarily without explanation. The Flanders also shared that Marie had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which could have contributed to her erratic behavior. A few weeks before she vanished, Marie experienced a severe episode of depression. She began taking medication but was forced to stop due to her pregnancy. Feeling extremely unwell, Marie asked the Flanders family to care for her daughter while she rested. After lunch, Marie lay down to rest, and Tanya and Grace went out shopping. James stayed with Marie to keep an eye on her, but he left for a short time to go home. When he returned, he was shocked to find that Marie and her car were nowhere to be found. The Flanders family immediately launched a search for Marie. They scoured the streets, checking the parking lots of every building, but found no sign of her. Then, James had an idea to check the airport, and to their astonishment, they found Marie's car parked there. Using the spare keys, James drove the car back home. When investigators examined the car, they did not find any suspicious marks or evidence that could lead to Marie's whereabouts. The investigators returned to the airport, hoping to find new leads. Their plan was to review the parking lot camera footage, as the airport is required to keep this information on file. They also hoped to find Marie's ticket, which might have her fingerprints on it. However, when they found the ticket, it didn't yield any useful results. The ticket was clean, with no fingerprints or other clues that could aid in the investigation. A search of Marie's car also turned up nothing, and the parking ticket didn't contain any fingerprints. To make matters worse, the cameras in the parking lot weren't working on the day Marie disappeared. This lack of footage was a significant setback for the investigation, leaving the question of whether Marie's disappearance was a tragic accident or a carefully planned escape. As the investigation continued, the police began to suspect that Marie's disappearance might be more sinister than initially thought. They reclassified the case as a murder investigation and shifted their focus to the mysterious father of Marie's child, Grace. The police returned to the church, hoping to find some answers to their questions. Who was Grace's father, and what role did he play in Marie's disappearance? The church, where Marie had found solace, was filled with rumors and speculation. Parishioners whispered about Marie's secret and the plan that had been weighing on her mind. Marie had been struggling with depression and had considered an abortion, but the Flanders family, who were eager to expand their family, had strongly opposed this idea. The Flanders asked Marie to leave her baby with them, while hypocritically offering to help her. Unbeknownst to others, they desperately wanted a second child, despite both being over 40. One parishioner claimed that Marie's baby, Grace, was a reward from above for the Flanders' good deeds. The situation took a turn when Jeff, Marie's ex-husband, arrived on the scene. He was not the father of the child but had information that could solve the mystery. Jeff revealed that he had noticed Marie's pregnancy and had questioned her about the father. Marie lied, saying she was a surrogate mother for the Flanders. However, the investigation that followed revealed the truth. Police spoke with Tanya's friends, who were also church members, and eventually, the truth came to light. It turned out that the father of the child was James, and the conception was natural. This meant that James's wife, Tanya, had to silently accept the situation. The revelation caught the investigators' attention, and the Flanders were summoned for questioning once again. Tanya was the only one who showed up for questioning. She confirmed the information and added that she was present when the child was conceived. According to her, everything happened with the mutual consent of all parties involved. After Marie disappeared, disturbing details about her relationship with James and Tanya came to light. It turned out that James was intimately involved with both women, which was not just infidelity but a form of polygamy. At one point, they even celebrated the child's birthday together, taking a photo of James, Tanya, and Marie posing as a happy family. However, this photo was meant to mislead, suggesting that the celebration was only for Tanya and that Marie was not involved. But after questioning Tanya's friends, the investigation uncovered new information that revealed the true nature of their relationship. Although Tanya claimed that Marie was initially happy with the arrangement, it became clear that this was no longer the case at some point. Marie's feelings for her daughter Grace were stirred after she was born, and she became hesitant to give her up to Tanya. According to friends, Marie's reservations fueled her jealousy of Tanya, sparking suspicion that Marie might not want to surrender her child to her rival and planned to steal James away from her. These rumors swiftly elevated Tanya to the top of the suspect list. Following Marie's disappearance, all Tanya's problems would essentially dissolve, granting her the opportunity to raise Grace solo and retain her status as James's beloved wife. However, 2 months had passed since Marie vanished, yet no leads emerged. Investigators diligently attempted to unravel the mysteries surrounding Marie's disappearance using available tools, including GPS data. Despite its limitations in 2011, investigators focused on analyzing phone records and message logs to gather more information. The records revealed that Marie had accompanied James to the airport, but Tanya was absent. This development coincided with the unexpected visit of Jason, a young priest who often represented James and ultimately chose to share information with investigators. Jason shared with others a conversation he had unintentionally overheard after Marie vanished. James expressed his distress and concern, stating that he would have to leave the country due to Marie's disappearance, but he couldn't disclose the details. He only mentioned that something terrible had occurred during Marie's severe depression. Prior to her disappearance, James had stayed with Marie at a clinic for a few days, while Jason temporarily took his place. Meanwhile, rumors about polygamy began circulating among the church parishioners, which shocked Jason when he discovered them. Upon James' return from the hospital, Jason decided to discuss the matter with him. Jason asked James about his relationship with Marie. James was honest and admitted to having a romantic relationship with both Marie and his wife. He revealed that he and Marie had a heated argument before her disappearance, which escalated into a physical fight. However, James insisted that Marie was alive and well at the time of her disappearance. Following their conversation, James decided to resign as pastor and soon left the city with his family, including Tanya and Grace, to move to Arizona. Shortly before their departure, Marie's family had contacted the Flanders family to collect some of Marie's belongings. As a result, investigators obtained Marie's phone, which may have contained crucial information. The investigation into Marie's disappearance was initially hindered because most of the data on James' phone had been deleted. However, investigators were able to recover some fragments, including a video of James promoting precious metals. This finding raised suspicions, particularly since the case took place in 2011, when digital evidence was easier to erase and surveillance was less widespread. At that time, DNA detection technologies were still in their infancy, making it seem like criminals could easily escape punishment. However, the field of digital forensics was also advancing, and it was this expertise that ultimately helped crack the case. 3 years after Marie vanished, a new program became available that enabled investigators to recover data from phones and computers. This technology allowed them to access messages between Marie and James, which painted a disturbing picture of their relationship. The recovered messages included explicit images, some of which were taken inside a church. Perhaps most damningly, Marie's emails to James revealed her deep desire to leave Fort Walton Beach, fearing the place was cursed. Her messages hinted at her desperation to escape with her child. A chain of unexpected and dramatic events led to the Flanders family's deepest secrets being exposed. Flanders said, "When someone spreads rumors or harms me, I want them to cease to exist." Given James' situation, shrouded in darkness and fear, it's possible he fulfilled this ominous promise. Despite the lack of Marie's body, there was sufficient evidence to issue an arrest warrant for James on charges of second-degree murder. However, the prosecutor faced a significant challenge, convincing the jury of James' guilt without the victim's body. James and his lawyer were in a desperate situation with an uncertain future ahead, so they made a drastic decision as a last resort to try and turn things around. If James revealed Marie's body's location, he would be charged with manslaughter, a crime with a more moderate sentence. After years of anguish, Marie's family agreed to this deal. James's words revealed a disturbing truth. He and Marie had a tumultuous relationship, frequently arguing about her struggles with depression. During one heated argument, Marie physically lashed out at James, and in an attempt to calm her down, he inadvertently knocked her to the ground. Tragically, she lost her life. In the aftermath, James was overcome with guilt and regret. He had unknowingly contributed to Marie's death, and his attempts to revive her were unsuccessful. The investigators eventually discovered Marie's body in the yard of James's house, buried 5 feet underground and wrapped in a blanket. The discovery was a shock to everyone involved, as they had been searching for her for years. The consequences of James's actions were severe. He was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 15 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 11 years. His wife, Tanya, claimed to have been unaware of James's crime and was deeply shocked by the news of Marie's death. Marie's body was discovered after a delay, which hindered experts from determining the cause of her death. This delayed discovery may have impacted the direction of the investigation. 5 years later, Marie's family and friends were finally able to lay her to rest and find closure at her funeral. Her sister Esther might have even sung a final song in her honor. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Justine Valdez. On May 19, 2018, Justine Valdez, 24, after completing the residency permit application process, she went to the gym to work out, finishing at around 4:20 p.m. With plans to go home, her mother, Terrace, texted her to pick up some bread on the way. Justine agreed, stopping at the store before catching the 185 bus to Bray, which departed at 6:09 p.m. The bus dropped Justine off at a familiar stop near her rural home called Ainakar Village. It usually took her 15 to 20 minutes to walk home. Although it was not a difficult journey for someone as young and active as Justine, her family became worried when she did not arrive home on time. Justine often told her family where she was and when she would be home, so her mother, Terrace, grew increasingly worried as time passed without any news from her. When Terrace tried calling and texting Justine, she did not respond. This prompted Terrace to go out and look for her. While searching, she asked strangers if they had seen Justine, describing her features and the sporty outfit that made her stand out from the crowd. Although some people saw Justine getting off the bus, no one knew where she went after that. Terrace's search for her daughter ended in frustration and growing fear. She had no idea what had happened to Justine on her way home, and with each passing moment, her anxiety grew. Terrace searched the streets, looking for Justine, but still found nothing. Justine's disappearance left her mother devastated, unable to find any trace of her daughter. Terrace, desperate, contacted the police to report the situation. The police quickly took her statement and began searching for Justine. As the police searched the area, they investigated Justine's life and social connections. It was learned that she lived with her parents, Terrace and Daniel Valdez, in the quiet rural area of Nisar, Ireland. Originally from the Philippines, Justine's parents moved to Ireland in search of a better life in 2015. Despite their difficult start, her parents worked hard to support Justine's education and life. A diligent student, Justine studied accounting at university while working part-time to support herself and help her family financially. Her part-time jobs included waitressing in Bray and babysitting for local families. Her parents, who lived in the servants' quarters of a large estate, worked for a prominent family, her mother as a housekeeper and her father as a gardener. Justine was known to be responsible, hardworking, and devoted to her family. Furthermore, her limited social circle and lack of typical teenage rebellious behavior made the idea of her running away seem implausible. When police contacted people who knew Justine, no one had any information about her whereabouts. the possibility of her running away was quickly ruled out. She was extremely close to her parents and kept them updated on her daily activities. On the day she went missing, she exchanged 63 text messages with her mother, the last of which came at 6:24 p.m. when Justine got off the bus. Police trying to find Justine received a vital tip. This led them to a disturbing incident that occurred just minutes after Justine got off the bus. A female driver reported seeing a man aggressively pushing a dark-haired Asian woman, wearing tracksuit bottoms similar to Justine, into the boot of a black Nissan Qashqai. The woman and her 12-year-old son drove past the scene and immediately called the police. Shortly after, another driver witnessed a similar alarming scene. This time, the Asian woman, who appeared to be very frightened, was seen sitting in the back of the car, knocking on the window for help. The driver who witnessed the incident discussed it with his wife when he got home, and he immediately called the police at 7:20 p.m. to report a possible kidnapping. Another driver also contacted police about a Nissan driving erratically near the scene. Police quickly arrived at the location, which the woman had called them earlier. When they arrived, they found Justine's broken phone and a bag of bread left on the side of the road, raising serious concerns for her safety. After the kidnapper tried to stuff Justine into the trunk of the car but she resisted, he forced her into the back seat and drove off to an unknown location. The suspect's black Nissan was immediately placed on the wanted list, leading to a large-scale search effort involving patrol cars and helicopters. However, the nighttime search was hampered by darkness and made no progress. The search continued as the day wore on, with police looking at witness accounts to narrow down the area where the perpetrator might be. A 40-year-old man named Mark Hennessy was identified because he matched the description of the kidnapper. Police went to his home and discovered that his wife, Nicola, did not know where he was because he had gone out drinking after work the day before. This information only added to the suspicion surrounding Mark, prompting police to investigate his background further. Mark Hennessy was a well-respected member of the community, known as a devoted husband and father to 2 young daughters, the youngest of whom was born 8 months ago in September 2017. He lived in an affluent neighborhood surrounded by other young families. His work as an estimator on construction sites provided a steady income for his family, and he had no previous run-ins with the law. However, police knew that people could often hide their true intentions behind a facade of good taste. With this in mind, the police went to the bar that Mark frequented the night before to gather more information. The staff confirmed that Mark had been there, but they said that he did not stay long. He left after drinking a beer and watching some football. Then Mark returned to the bar around midnight, his expression clearly agitated and anxious. After reviewing the security footage of the bar, the police confirmed what the staff had said. They observed Mark staying there for about 10 minutes before leaving at 5:40 p.m. Engrossed in a conversation on the phone, he quickly went to his car and drove away. Then he returned to the bar around 11 p.m. Mark returned to the bar and talked to someone he knew at the entrance for a while before leaving the bar. Police began investigating Mark's activities between 5:40 p.m. and 11 p.m. A key discovery was then made when police analyzed surveillance footage from Justine's bus route. The footage showed Mark's black Nissan following the bus, starting 30 minutes after Mark left the bar. This disturbing discovery raised further suspicions about Mark's involvement in Justine's disappearance. The search for Mark's car and the missing girl continued, and Mark became the prime suspect in Justine's abduction. Mark called his wife to say he was going away for a long time. When his family tried to convince him to turn himself in, he refused and quickly left. His parents reported to the police that they had seen Mark, and the police tried to find him. But Mark escaped. The police asked for the public's help by issuing a media appeal. They asked for anyone with knowledge of Justine, Mark, or his car to come forward. A woman who heard the appeal kept an eye out and spotted a car that looked like Mark's on the road. She followed it to Cherrywood Park and observed the driver closely, then quickly contacted the police. When the police arrived, they found a man covered in blood sitting behind the wheel of a car. Despite attempts to coax him out of the car, Mark was stubborn, brandishing a knife in a threatening manner. Faced with imminent danger, the police were forced to resort to force, resulting in Mark being shot in the shoulder. After removing him from the car, they found him conscious but still uncooperative. The police then searched the car but unfortunately did not find Justine. Mark remained silent despite being questioned several times. The medical team quickly treated him and took him to the hospital. Doctors tried to save his life, hoping that he would eventually reveal Justine's location. Unfortunately, it was discovered that the bullet had ricocheted and hit Mark in the head. Further investigation revealed a gruesome discovery: the blood on his face and body was his own, and he had several fresh stab wounds on his arms and neck. The police believe that Mark, fearing arrest, apparently used a knife from his car to attempt suicide rather than face the consequences. The police eventually caught the suspect, but instead of feeling relieved, everyone felt disappointed. They found the suspect in his car, but they still hadn't found the missing person they were looking for. A glimmer of hope came when police discovered a piece of paper at the scene. Although it was covered in blood, they could read the words "sorry" and "Pease Castle." These words suggested that this might be a clue to finding Justine. Despite this small hope, they persisted. A search was launched in a forest in South Dublin, based on a clue found near a castle. First, searchers found Justine's wallet, which contained her identification. Then, on May 21st, searchers discovered Justine's body. An autopsy revealed that she had been murdered on the night of her abduction, and that she had died from strangulation. Unfortunately, the autopsy also revealed that Justine had been sexually assaulted, adding to the brutality of her death. A toxicology report, which found trace amounts of banned substances in her system, left many questions unanswered. It is unclear how the substances entered her system or what their purpose was. However, further investigation revealed that Mark had recently consumed large amounts of these substances, adding to the mystery. It turned out that Mark was a regular user of drugs and excessive alcohol, which could have inadvertently introduced these substances into Justine's system. At the same time, Mark's family life was also beginning to fall apart due to his addiction, debt, and frequent arguments with his wife. Investigations into Mark's activities have revealed that he used the dating app Tinder to interact with multiple women and flirt with women at bars. The discovery of Mark's DNA on Justine's body further strengthened the police's suspicion that he was involved in Justine's kidnapping and murder. As the police investigated the case, they discovered that the murder was motivated by sexual desire, and Justine had unwittingly become Mark's target. He discovered Justine while he was following a bus, and took advantage of her getting off the bus, brazenly abducting her from the street without hesitation, even in the presence of multiple witnesses. An investigation into Justine and Mark's phones revealed no previous connection or communication between them. However, further analysis revealed that Mark was familiar with Justine's regular route, suggesting that her murder was premeditated. It seemed that Mark had been closely monitoring Justine's movements, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This discovery shows Mark's premeditated brutality and Justine's tragic fate. The day Justine was kidnapped, he deliberately waited at the bus stop, closely monitoring her every move, until he suddenly grabbed her. The people around were extremely shocked by this scene, as such violent crimes rarely happened in their peaceful neighborhood. Many people came to pay their condolences to Justine's family, comforting and supporting them in this time of great loss. At the funeral, heartfelt tributes were paid as white balloons floated into the sky. Some attendees wore pink t-shirts with Justine's image printed on them, a touching tribute to her memory. Justine's family decided to hold her funeral in the Philippines, her homeland, to find solace in a familiar place. Although they lived in another country for a while, they finally moved back to Ireland in 2021. By starting over in a new city and pursuing different careers, they hoped to escape the painful memories that still haunted their old home. Hey detectives! Welcome back. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Jennifer Shuett. Jennifer Shuett was an 8-year-old girl who had just finished school for the day. She lived with her single mother, Elaine, who worked hard to ensure that her daughter was happy and well taken care of. Elaine juggled multiple jobs to support their family and give Jennifer a joyful childhood. With all the love and attention she received, Jennifer grew into a bright and cheerful child, showing a strong enthusiasm for learning and a natural curiosity at such a young age. Jennifer mentioned that children often fear the dark, and she was no different. She admitted that she was afraid of the dark and often slept in the same room as her mother. She recalled that from what she could remember about her childhood, she just didn't like the dark or sleeping alone, and so she felt comforted by going to bed with her mom. She stated that it was just the two of them, and they relied on each other. That night, on August 9, 2009, Jennifer and her mother, Elaine, shared a room. Jennifer was restless, tossing and turning and occasionally kicking her mom, which made it hard for Elaine to fall asleep. At 2:30 a.m., Elaine woke up and asked Jennifer to return to her own room since she had to get up early for work. In response, Jennifer said, "Mom, I love you, so I'm going to sleep in my own room tonight," and went back to her room. Elaine would later deeply regret this decision, but at that moment, she had no way of knowing what would happen next. The next morning, Elaine found that Jennifer was missing when she went to wake her up. She saw that the window facing the parking lot was wide open. Elaine quickly called 911. When the police arrived, she explained that she hadn't heard any sounds or screams after Jennifer went to her room. It's important to note that their apartment was on the first floor, and Jennifer's windows overlooked the parking lot. This made Elaine worry that someone might have seen Jennifer and entered her room through the window. Elaine understood that their apartment wasn't the best place for her and her young daughter, but it was all they could afford at that time. However, Elaine's parents stepped in to assist her and their granddaughter by buying a small house nearby and renovating it. Jennifer and her mother were set to move into the new house in a few months. The day before Jennifer went missing, they had been working in the garden there, where Jennifer had been bitten by mosquitoes, making it difficult for her to sleep peacefully that night. After her daughter went missing, Elaine was heartbroken. She expressed that Jennifer was her only child and begged for her safe return. The police dedicated themselves to finding her. Fortunately, Elaine received news sooner than expected. Later that day, around 6:30 p.m., the police got a call from parents whose children were playing in a field and discovered something alarming. To their shock, they realized it was a young girl. When the police arrived at the scene, they found 8-year-old Jennifer Shuett's body in the middle of the field, 5 kilometers from her home. Jennifer was in a serious condition, but she was still breathing. She had a deep cut across her throat. The most life-threatening injury was this wound, which led to significant blood loss and left her very pale and weak. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, where doctors worked hard to save her life. One doctor recalled that when he first saw Jennifer in the emergency room, she was a fairly small 8-year-old, very pale, and covered with ant bites and scratches on her back. He mentioned that she couldn't make any sounds because of the injury to her neck. Fortunately, he added that after the operation, Jennifer's condition stabilized and the bleeding stopped. He stated that they had completed her surgery, her airway was stable, and she wasn't bleeding, so they were very hopeful about her survival. When she regained consciousness after the surgery, her behavior underwent a sudden change. It turned out that she was afraid of all men. She later recounted that she had been kind of a hard patient to deal with because she had a lot of male doctors, and she was scared of males. Additionally, the Dickinson Police Department deployed a whole team to guard her hospital room. Throughout this time, Jennifer was in a constant state of panic. She even hit a doctor in the stomach when he tried to approach her. Elaine tried to comfort her daughter by explaining that everyone present was there to help her. Despite this, Jennifer remained distrustful of those around her. Her behavior became clearer when she disclosed what had happened to her that night. An investigator noted that they knew they had a survivor who couldn't speak and that the challenge was getting information from her. After all, she was only 8 years old, so it was tough. Because Jennifer was too scared to speak directly to the investigator, the detectives provided her with a notebook and pens. They asked her to write down her answers to their questions. Jennifer communicated through notes to her mother, who then relayed the note to the officer. Surprisingly, her written responses were very detailed and accurately described the events. Despite her young age, Jennifer demonstrated impressive intelligence. According to the note, that night, Jennifer entered her room, turned on the light, and picked up a book to read, hoping it would make her sleepy. It worked, and she soon fell asleep. Suddenly, she woke up to find the stranger carrying her out of the house. She said that he was running with her down the sidewalk and that she tried to scream, but he covered her nose and mouth. Afterward, he put her in a car and identified himself as an undercover police officer. Immediately, Jennifer felt that something was off, as she noticed her mother's car in the parking lot, which left her puzzled about their destination. While she understood that police are generally trusted, her mother had always warned her not to trust strangers. Jennifer recalled that as a child, she had wanted to believe the stranger, but the lessons she had learned about strangers in school, along with her fear of the dark, told her that something was seriously wrong. When they passed her grandparents' house, Jennifer suggested that he could drop her off there, but he replied that he couldn't because they were not home. At that moment, she realized that he was lying since their car was parked in the driveway. The man had stopped near Jennifer's school, which was about 3 kilometers from her house. He had told her to watch the moon closely and said that when it changed color, her mother would arrive to pick her up. Jennifer recalled waiting anxiously for her mother's headlights, but they never appeared. At that moment, she sensed that the man was mentally preparing himself for his true intentions. After 5 minutes, the stranger remarked that her mom wasn't coming, so they needed to go farther. He then drove a few more blocks to a dead-end street and stopped the car. Jennifer once again sought confirmation that he was a genuine policeman. She mentioned that she was questioning him and needed him to prove he was an officer. She asked him where his gun and badge were. He responded that his gun was in the back seat of the car. As Jennifer turned to look for it, the suspicious officer removed her underwear. Jennifer lost track of time while in the stranger's grip because she passed out. She only became aware of her surroundings again when he was pulling her by her ankles through the field. Despite the intense pain caused by twigs and stones pressing into her back, she acted as if she were dead and remained silent, knowing that this was her opportunity to survive. He eventually released her feet and left her alone in the field. Jennifer heard him walking away, followed by the sound of his car door slamming and the engine starting as he drove off. She realized that she couldn't scream and didn't understand why. She managed to place her right hand on her neck and felt a deep wound. Looking at her hand, she saw it covered in blood. Since the exact time of her disappearance was unknown, it was thought that she lay in the field for 12 to 14 hours. As the sun set, she noticed the lights of passing cars nearby. She heard children's voices and a dog that approached her several times, seemingly trying to get its owner's attention, but the owner never came. During this time, she was bitten by fire ants, which helped her stay awake. Jennifer stated that every time she regained consciousness, she was shocked that she was still alive. She said she wasn't afraid and had accepted that she might not survive. Suddenly, she heard children's voices nearby, and then something hit her leg. When Jennifer next regained consciousness, she heard a police officer saying, You've been found. You're going to be okay. Just please stay with me." She remembered being loaded into the life flight helicopter. This experience was very difficult for young Jennifer because she couldn't speak and had to communicate by writing everything down. Her fear of men added to the tension, so her mother asked the questions, and Jennifer's responses were passed on to the officers outside the door. Remarkably, 8-year-old Jennifer was able to get the stranger's name. "I just remember recalling his name, so I wrote that he said his name was Dennis. I remember thinking he looked greasy and that he might have had a scar or something on his face." For days after Jennifer went missing, the police enlisted the help of forensic expert Lois Gibson. She communicated with Jennifer using gestures and notes. Despite these difficulties, they created a detailed composite sketch of a man, which was released to the public in hopes of receiving information. While this was happening, police searched the crime scene and discovered Jennifer's clothing about half a mile away, along with a man's shirt and underwear. Unfortunately, DNA testing on the clothing did not yield any matches to a suspect. Jennifer's recovery took time, but she demonstrated incredible strength for someone her age. There was a particularly tough moment when she became upset over a chocolate bar she couldn't eat, screamed in frustration, and made a faint sound. Doctors were surprised because her vocal cords had been nearly severed, and they didn't expect them to heal, yet they started to recover. Soon after, Jennifer was released from the hospital. She returned home and resumed her studies. After finishing school and college, she chose to become a children's librarian. However, she never forgot the traumatic events of that night. Every day felt like a search for her attacker. She wondered if he could be anyone around her. Could it be our new neighbor? Someone at the post office or the grocery store? Is he watching us? Will he come back to finish what he started? Fortunately, Jennifer met a man named Jonathan, and for the first time in years, she felt she could trust someone. They fell in love. Meanwhile, the investigation into her attacker stalled. The chances of finding him diminished as time passed, and the case remained unresolved, moving from one investigator to another without progress. 18 years after that dreadful night, Jennifer received a phone call. She learned that Detective Tim Cromie would be taking over her case and that he wanted to meet with her. Tim Cromie promised to do everything possible to catch the criminal, and Jennifer believed him. He told her that he would do whatever he could in his power until the end of his career to get her the answers she needed for the case. Tim decided to involve FBI Special Agent Richard Renison in the case. Richard had previously worked for the Dickinson, Texas Police Department before joining the FBI. Together, Tim and Richard uncovered a significant amount of evidence collected on the day Jennifer went missing and shortly after she was found. Key pieces of evidence included Jennifer's underwear, as well as the perpetrator's shirt and underwear. They sent a DNA sample found on these items to the lab in Quantico, Virginia. While detectives recognized that DNA analysis technology had improved significantly over the past 19 years, they also knew that the age of the case would make it less of a priority in the lab. Investigating cold cases often comes with the challenge of time, as witnesses forget, people move away, and some may even pass away. However, one advantage of this case's age was the advancements in DNA technology that could aid their investigation. A year later, their efforts were finally recognized. The man whose DNA was discovered at the crime scene was Dennis Earl Bradford, the same name that Jennifer had identified years earlier. Remarkably, the 8-year-old girl had been extremely precise in her descriptions. Despite being on pain medication, unable to speak, and only 8 years old, she wrote down the name Dennis. This was a significant indication of her accuracy. In fact, it later became clear just how precise she was about many details. Dennis Bradford, now 39, lived in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and his DNA had been entered into the national database after he assaulted a woman in a bar in 1996. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison but only served 4. On February 4, 2000, he was conditionally released, and less than a year later, he was arrested for driving under the influence, just half a mile from his home. He remarried and worked as a welder until his arrest in 2009. Tim Cromie Richard Renison looked into the connection between a suspect from North Little Rock, Arkansas, and Dickinson, Texas, a small town. They discovered that the man had been arrested in Dickinson in 1987, 3 years before Jennifer's attack. At that time, he had 2 addresses located within 2 miles of Jennifer and Elaine's apartment. To verify that he was the kidnapper, detectives requested a 19-year-old photo from his driver's license. When they saw the photo, they were shocked because it resembled the composite sketch made with input from 8-year-old Jennifer. One detective asked if Dennis had ever heard the name Jennifer Schuett, to which he replied affirmatively. The detective then inquired if Dennis had ever had the occasion to come into contact with her, and the suspect again confirmed this. When asked to elaborate, Dennis hesitated, stating that it was a lot to explain, but he believed that if the detective were to see her, he would be extremely proud of her. Finally, and the suspect stated that Jennifer was alive, repeating that she was alive. The detective reacted with disbelief, exclaiming, "Oh God." The suspect responded by saying that the detective had no idea how hard he had prayed for that, mentioning that he was a believer in Christ but had no idea about her status. He added that it was just about 2 days later when he ran away and took off. Dennis Earl Bradford was arrested on October 19, 2009. He claimed he didn't know Jennifer, couldn't remember why he had stopped near her apartment, and didn't understand why he had acted so cruelly towards her. Bradford also shared a significant detail that investigators were unaware of. After the attack, he felt intense guilt. He wanted to pull the trigger but ultimately changed his mind. Following this, he was admitted to a psychiatric ward, which was the same hospital where Jennifer was still receiving treatment at that time. He had been very close to her at that time. Immediately after the interrogation, detectives informed Jennifer that the criminal they had been searching for 19 years had been arrested. Jennifer expressed that when they called her that morning and told her that they had really arrested Dennis Bradford, it was the most moment of her life and meant everything to her. She conveyed her gratitude to the detectives for fulfilling their promise and, above all, wanted to thank Detective Tim Cromie from the Dickinson Police Department and Special Agent Richard Renison from the FBI for all their hard work and dedication over the last year and a half. She emphasized that their promise from day one, never giving up on her case and hearing her voice while seeing her determination, meant a lot to her. Jennifer also admitted her anticipation of facing Dennis Bradford in the courtroom since he was willing to plead guilty and not drag out the trial. Jennifer was given the opportunity to select a court date and chose August 10, the 20th anniversary of the attack. She mentioned that she remembered staying up late, endless nights, trying to perfect her victim impact statement, writing, erasing, and writing again, just trying to perfect what she wanted to say. She said that she had 19 years worth of things to say to that person. However, it was not meant to happen. On May 10, 2010, a few months before the trial, Dennis hung in his jail cell, which made her feel that her right to see the case through to the end had been taken away. Jennifer went to Dennis's grave and read aloud what she wanted to say in court, stating that Dennis Bradford had chosen the wrong little 8-year-old girl to try and murder because for 19 years, she had thought of him every single day and had helped in searching for him. She expressed that in her heart, she knew he was out there, and now she realized that by listening to her heart all those years and never giving up on finding him, she had been right. After finishing her speech, Jennifer turned to her husband and wondered if Dennis had heard her. At that moment, a fiery ant bit her leg, and she took it as a sign from God that he had heard her loud and clear. Jennifer reflected on her experiences, mentioning that despite the horrific events caused by Dennis's actions, she faced yet another challenge in her life. She explained that as a result of the trauma, she almost lost the ability to conceive a child. However, she noted that amidst the darkness, there were shining examples of kindness, particularly from Dr. Craig Witz, who, after hearing her story, generously offered his services to her twice, free of charge. She shared that at the end of 2012, she and her partner welcomed their daughter Jenna and later their son Jonah, expressing her disbelief by saying that it felt like a dream and questioning who would have thought that they would really be her happy ending. The criminal tried to silence her and take away her right to be a mother, but he failed. Jennifer desires for her story to be shared, not for her own sake, but for others who have endured similar ordeals and must cope with them every day. She mentioned that they have gone through something in life that they can talk about, and she believes it is worth sharing it with others to instill hope. She expressed her hope that this would inspire others to use their voice to help someone else. Jennifer also added that, in the end, she is not a victim but instead victorious. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Andrea Del Vesco. Andrea Del Vesco was born in Chicago, USA, in 1994. Her parents, Arthur and Leslie. Her older brother, James, was 2 years old at her birth, and her younger sister, Alexis, was born 4 years later. The family was happy and loving, moving several times before settling in Austin, Texas. Andrea's mother, Leslie, studied financial marketing at Southern Methodist University. She worked for American Airlines and then as a customer service manager in the mortgage division of Citibank. After her family was grown, she quit her job to become a stay-at-home mom. Andrea's father, Arthur, managed the family's assets as the owner of an investment firm. His hard work helped the family become quite wealthy, allowing them to live comfortably. The family's wealth enabled them to send all their children to university. Before that, the children attended a private school with a rigorous academic program taught by the best teachers in the state. From an early age, they engaged in a wide range of activities, from sports to religion, which helped instill high moral values in them. Andrea excelled academically, played sports, and developed in a well-rounded manner. She loved visiting museums and learning about art. She is kind and caring towards those around her. She has a particularly close relationship with her mother. From a young age, Andrea and her family traveled a lot, which broadened her horizons and exposed her to many different people and cultures. As she grew up, Andrea became her parents' hope and pride. In 2012, after finishing school, she applied to several educational institutions simultaneously. Her parents hoped she would attend the University of Chicago, where her older brother was studying, and for a while, Andrea preferred this option too. However, she decided to wait until she received responses from all the schools she applied to before making a decision. Ultimately, she chose the psychology department at the University of California, Los Angeles. By 2022, this university was ranked among the best in America. It has always been highly regarded and prestigious, with highly qualified teachers and a strong scientific and technical foundation. This choice reassured her family. Andrea then moved to Los Angeles to attend school. Her parents were happy with her decision and supported her choice, although they were worried that she would be too far away. Her brother would no longer be able to take care of her. With the support of her family, she began her new life. Upon arrival, Andrea needed to choose a club to join, which helped her develop lasting friendships and gain support from more experienced students. To become a full member, one usually needed to pass a test and make a small donation. The student community was very close-knit, with many students living so openly that they left their doors unlocked, allowing them to visit each other freely. Although it was generally safe, incidents could still occur. Andrea happily joined the club. She had a great sense of humor, was good-looking, and dressed well. Her impeccable style made her popular. She also created many extravagant outfits that amazed everyone. Andrea was the center of attention at any party. However, she balanced her social life with her studies. After completing her freshman year, she got a job as a paralegal at a law firm in Brentwood, handling administrative tasks. This job did not fit her schedule, so she found a new part-time job. She kept changing jobs to better balance her work and studies, allowing her to have pocket money and not have to depend on her parents. Andrea continued her student life until she graduated in 2015. She always dreamed of traveling after finishing her studies. As her senior year approached, she lived in a dormitory just 5 minutes away from the main university building. This dorm is a great place for students, hosting many sorority parties and university events. Andrea shares her living space with her sorority friends and a small dog she adopted from a rescue. She loves her pet so much that she even has a social media page dedicated to posting cute pictures of it. One day, the dog goes missing, leaving Andrea devastated as she searches frantically for it. Luckily, her beloved dog is found 5 days later. In September, Andrea is preparing to start her senior year of college, with classes scheduled to begin on September 24th. However, the fall semester officially starts on the 21st. On the 19th, she shares one of her favorite music videos on her social media page. The very next day, September 20th, 2015, is the last day before the girls in the club return to school. Everyone was having fun on the balcony of the apartment building. Andrea was at a club activity until 3 in the morning with her friend Jessica. Jessica then went to her bedroom around 3:30 and went to sleep, while Andrea lay on the couch in the living room. However, Andrea could not sleep that night. A few hours later, Samantha, another neighbor, came running to Andrea's door, screaming about a fire. Andrea's door was closed, which was unusual because she always left her room open for her friends in the club. Samantha tried to open the door but couldn't, so she called the other girls to help. Together, with great difficulty, they managed to open the door and found the room filled with smoke and fire. They found Andrea lying motionless on the bed but could not call her because of the danger. Realizing that they could not safely enter the room, the girls evacuated and called 9 people at a time. They waited on the sidewalk for help. Later, the fire truck arrived at the scene. Firefighters quickly used hoses to extinguish the fire on the second floor. A total of 32 firefighters worked to effectively extinguish the fire. After the incident, rumors spread among the students that Andrea was dead, as she had not escaped the building and was not seen. When the firefighters finally entered the room, they found the body of a woman lying on her bed. During the investigation, the police determined that the fire started in Andrea's bedroom. At the scene, the police were unable to identify the deceased because her face was disfigured by the fire. They were only able to confirm that it was a female body. Fingerprints could not be taken because her hands were too badly burned. Surprisingly, the girl's small dog was found by firefighters. The dog was severely burned, barely breathing at the feet of its owner. However, it was later decided to euthanize the dog to reduce its suffering. After the incident, the dormitory students were relocated to different housing while repairs started on the burned building. The girls were frightened, leading the university to enhance campus security. Everyone believed that Andrea was the victim of the fire since all other students were confirmed safe during roll call. They reported seeing Andrea lying on her bed in the room that was on fire and were puzzled as to why she did not get up and leave. They found it odd and speculated that she might have lost consciousness, suffocated from carbon monoxide, or had already died. Andrea's parents returned to Austin from a long trip, unaware of what had happened to their daughter. They began to worry when Andrea did not reach out to them, and their attempts to contact her were unsuccessful. Concerned, her mother called one of their neighbors and learned about the fire, which might have involved Andrea. However, the police had not yet confirmed the identity of the body found at the scene. The entire family gathered to pray for Andrea's safety and traveled to Los Angeles. Meanwhile, police began investigating the case. They discovered that Jessica, Andrea's neighbor, was the last person to communicate with her before the tragedy. Police planned to interview Jessica to gather details about their last conversation, hoping she might have witnessed something important. Police interviewed Jessica to learn how the fire started, but her answers were not helpful. She quickly stated that she saw nothing and had no idea what caused the fire. Friends from the sisterhood, who also spoke with the police, suggested that Andrea may have accidentally fallen asleep with an aromatic candle still lit. They were convinced that the fire was not set intentionally, as Andrea had no enemies or anyone who wished her harm. To verify this theory, a detailed examination of the incident scene was needed. Initially, they inspected electrical appliances and outlets for any short circuits, but everything appeared to be in order. No candles were found at the scene, and the only item that raised suspicion was the trash can located at the head of the bed. Experienced firefighters speculated that this could be the starting point of the fire. However, friends and members of the sisterhood confirmed that Andrea never slept near the trash can, which was typically placed at the opposite end of the room. Unfortunately, the contents of the can could not be identified without a detailed chemical analysis, as everything was completely destroyed. Forensic experts specializing in arson were called in to investigate. 2 hours after the fire was put out, police were convinced that it was not accidental. The critical piece of evidence was a metal trash can, which someone could have used to pour flammable liquid and ignite a fire. The flames originated near the head of the girl's bed and spread throughout the room. Forensic experts confirmed their suspicions when it was clear that the fire was intentionally set. The investigation at the crime scene intensified. Forensic experts found a large number of traces of blood splashes on the bed and around it, with most of the stains surviving the fire. Police were concerned when neighbors reported trying to call the Andrea as they entered her room at the start of the fire, but she did not respond and was found lying motionless. They feared she was already dead and suspected that the perpetrator had set the fire to destroy evidence. By this time, the police had already pieced together a rough timeline of the events from that tragic evening. They interviewed many students, focusing mainly on the roommates. According to the roommates, a group of girls had been chatting on the balcony before entering the apartment building. The last confirmed sighting of Andrea alive was at 5:50 a.m. Samantha, her roommate, was preparing for work on campus and saw that Andrea was sleeping on the couch in the living room at that time. Samantha left for work and returned around 6:30 a.m., but Andrea was no longer on the couch. She had gone to her room, but this time her door was closed, which was unusual for her. This behavior struck Samantha as odd, and she wondered why Andrea had suddenly gone to her room and shut the door, especially after being fast asleep before. Feeling concerned, Samantha noted this difference when she then saw the fire. While talking to other students in the dorm, the police discovered a significant clue. A girl named Sarah returned to her room around 5:30 a.m. after dropping her boyfriend off at the airport. Her apartment was directly above Andrea's room. Since it was still dark at that hour, Sarah noticed a male figure as she tried to open her front door. The building was for women, but it wasn't unusual for guys to visit their girlfriends, so she didn't think much of it at first. However, she became alarmed when the man immediately ran away upon seeing her, as if he was trying to hide. This frightened and confused her. She described the man as wearing a black baseball cap, a black and white t-shirt, and dark jeans. Feeling scared, Sarah hurried into her room and locked the door. Once inside, she quickly texted her boyfriend to tell him about the suspicious man she had seen. Unsure whether he posed a threat or if she should contact the police, she shared her concerns. Her boyfriend reassured her that it was likely just someone visiting, suggesting there was no need to panic. Later Sarah went to bed, but around 6:15, she was awakened by a woman's scream and the frantic barking of a dog from the room below her, where Andrea lived. This startled her, especially since the dog had never barked before and usually stayed calm. She realized something was wrong downstairs. Sarah tried to reach Andrea to check on her, but couldn't get in touch. She called 911, but the emergency services didn't take her seriously because the area was known for its student parties and noise. Still, a patrol car was dispatched to the dormitory. The police arrived around 6:23 but left a few minutes later without updating Sarah on their findings. They reported seeing nothing unusual, no person, no barking dog, and no screams. They only shined their flashlights into Andrea's room from the street without conducting a thorough investigation. Believing that someone might have had too much to drink or had an argument that upset the dog, the police decided to leave. Meanwhile, Sarah was watching from the window and tried calling Andrea, but no one answered. She also tried to contact the other girls in the building, but it seemed that everyone was asleep. After the police left, she heard a loud bang at around 6:45 a.m. Sarah rushed to the balcony and looked down, seeing thick smoke rising. She also spotted a stranger in a black and white t-shirt jumping from the balcony below. Panicking, Sarah feared that the man had harmed Andrea. She quickly grabbed her phone and called 911 to report the situation, then ran downstairs, where other students had gathered near Andrea's room, trying to open the door. Sarah quickly left the building to chase the intruder. She spotted him and ran after him down the street, but he escaped by getting into a red Nissan and driving away. Sarah recalled a detail on the car window that had a fraternity sticker. Meanwhile, Andrea's friends had made it into her room. They called out to her, but there was no response. The students claimed they saw her lying motionless on her bed, surrounded by flames. Several girls noticed blood on her neck, chest, and shoulders. In a panic, the friends left the burning house and saw the red Nissan speeding away, with Sarah in pursuit. However, none of Andrea's friends could identify anyone who might have wanted to harm her. All of her friends had cared for her, and at the time of her death, she was not in a romantic relationship. The investigation looked into the possibility of a robbery, but nothing was stolen from Andrea's room. It is thought that Andrea may have met someone on Tinder and the date did not go well. But this has not been confirmed as there are no leads. The police reviewed the surveillance footage from the campus, but it was unhelpful because of its poor quality. They searched all nearby streets for a red Nissan car with a fraternity sticker that had been spotted near the crime scene. Police interviewed all the students, focusing on fraternity members and residents of nearby homes. Nicholas and Mohair later reported a burglary, claiming that their laptops and speakers had been stolen, and one of them said that the keys to his red Nissan were also missing. This occurred on the same evening as Andrea's murder. A few days after the fire, police officially identified the charred remains as belonging to 21-year-old Andrea Delvesco, using dental records provided by her family. An autopsy conducted on September 22 indicated that she was wearing only a sports bra at the time of her death, which raised suspicions of rape, although this could not be confirmed due to the condition of her body. Most of her hair had been burned away, and there was significant blood loss, particularly from the back of her head. Approximately 90% of her body was burned. Forensic experts found multiple fatal stab wounds on Andrea's body, mainly to her head and neck. She had 5 stab wounds on the right side of her neck and 2 on the left, for a total of 19 stab wounds. The lack of soot and carbon monoxide in her body suggests that Andrea was dead before the fire started. This suggests that the fire was an attempt to cover up the crime rather than the cause of death. As a result, the investigation was upgraded to a murder case, creating a sense of fear across the campus. On the day the official forensic report was made public, police traced a stolen laptop and speakers to a man named Joseph in Fresno, California, which is over 3 hours from the crime scene. Police quickly going to his address. When police met Joseph, he claimed that he had borrowed the speakers from his roommate and that he had done nothing wrong. The situation became more complicated when the stolen items were passed around. His friend was Alberto Medina. Alberto claimed that he had lent the items to Joseph, explaining that his friends, who were moving out, had given them to him for safekeeping. However, Alberto then disappeared. Police began searching for Alberto on September 24th. He was arrested 2 days later and brought in for questioning. Alberto's testimony was inconsistent. He said that on September 18th, he went to the University of California with his friend Eric Marquez. They spent the week together, attending a Chris Brown concert and then going to a party with friends who had laptops and speakers. Under pressure from police, Alberto eventually confessed that he had stolen the items from random people while intoxicated and unaware of his actions, and returned home around 5:30 a.m. The police noted that the fire had not started at that time. When questioned about a suspicious stranger, Alberto unexpectedly claimed he was attacked by someone with a gun while they were returning with the stolen items. The attacker fired at them but missed, allowing them to escape. Alberto described the attacker as wearing dark jeans and a black and white t-shirt, matching the description Sarah had previously given. However, the police still expressed doubts about Alberto's story. Alberto suddenly remembered that his friend Eric had visited Andrea, a beautiful blonde woman he met at a party that same weekend. Eric planned to be intimate with her. When Eric returns to the apartment, he acts strange and nervous. Eric says he hit her, and urges Alberto to leave quickly. Alberto's account implicates Eric in Andrea's murder. 5 days after the murder, the police interviewed a new suspect named Eric Marquez. He was 22 years old and a fifth-year medical student at the university. Eric had no previous legal problems and was viewed as a good person. His friend Alberto pointed the police to his home, which was only a 5-minute walk from the crime scene. However, getting Eric to confess was challenging. He stated that he spent the entire weekend drinking at home and hardly went out. Alberto and Eric's testimony was confirmed by surveillance camera footage from their home. When the footage was reviewed, both Eric and Alberto were active from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m., frequently wandering the streets. Alberto was wearing a black and white t-shirt and dark jeans. At 4 a.m., Alberto and Eric left the house for an extended period of time. Alberto was easily recognized by the distinctive tattoos on his arms. A key moment in the footage is Alberto returning to the apartment at around 7:11 a.m. with Andrea's red blanket wrapped around him. This corresponds to the time of the arson. Additionally, a red Nissan, matching Sarah's description, was spotted on video. By 7:30 a.m., Alberto and Eric were seen leaving the house again to throw away some trash. At this time, Alberto was shirtless and Eric had changed his clothing. While the cameras captured this evidence, Eric insisted he could not remember anything. Police obtained a search warrant for Alberto and Eric's apartment. A thorough inspection revealed that Alberto had suffered abrasions to his hands, while Eric had no similar injuries. Police found the red Nissan, which had blood on the steering wheel, dashboard, and driver's door, along with trash and a black sock inside. In the apartment's closet, police discovered a trash bag filled with bloody clothing, Andrea's underwear, and a black sock that matched the sock found in the car, a bloody knife, and a blanket missing from Andrea's room. After conducting the inspection, police gathered enough evidence to formally charge Alberto and Eric. On September 28, Alberto and Eric were charged with murder and burglary, and Albert was additionally charged with arson. Despite the threat of the death penalty, both pleaded not guilty. Their families insisted on a thorough, independent investigation, unable to accept that their son could have committed such a heinous act. Police later interviewed Joseph Garcia, who was found using a stolen laptop and speakers. He claimed that he had witnessed Alberto and Eric returning home that evening. Alberto had confided in him about the incident at the dormitory. He had entered Andrea's room after watching her while she walked her dog, then snuck inside. Alberto took a knife from the kitchen, forced Andrea into the room, and locked the door. He raped her, and when she screamed and fought back, he stabbed her to death and burned the house to cover up his crime. Alberto threatened Joseph to keep quiet. An expert found DNA evidence that showed blood on the suspect's clothes and car matched Andrea's DNA. Additionally, a witness named Julio, a cleaner, observed Alberto getting out of his car and walking toward Andrea's dorm. Julio noted that Alberto had a large tattoo on his arm and was wearing a black and white t-shirt. Alberto and Eric both appeared drunk and said they needed to go to Andrea's room because she needed help. Police determined that Alberto had entered the building while Eric was still in the car, so the blood was only found on the driver's side. Andrea's family was outraged by the police's inaction when Sarah first raised her concerns. The officers neglected to check Andrea's room, the likely scene of the crime. The Los Angeles Police Department announced that the officers involved have been suspended and an internal investigation has been launched to look into their negligence in responding to a call from the victim's friend, Sarah. The findings of that investigation have been submitted to the court. Although the officers were acquitted but were still fired. In the fall of 2016, Eric went on trial for his role in Andrea's murder, along with charges of robbery and arson. Eric and Alberto were charged with animal cruelty due to the injuries Andrea's dog suffered in the fire. In September 2017, the possibility of the death penalty was considered for Alberto. His attorneys urged him to accept a plea deal to receive a lighter sentence and avoid the death penalty, but he refused. As a result, the case was split into two separate trials. Eric was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months after pleading guilty to accessory and abetting. It was determined that he did not participate in the murder or arson. He remained in the car throughout the incident. Alberto Medina's trial began on May 15, 2018. He faced a jury on 5 different charges. Despite this, Alberto chose not to accept the plea deal offered by the prosecution. On May 24, 2018, after extensive deliberation, Alberto pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, arson, animal cruelty, and burglary. The judge decided against the death penalty, sentencing him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, the court imposed another 12 years for other charges. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Mariana Jocelyn Baltira. Mariana Jocelyn Baltira was born on October 24, 2000, in Morelos, a city in the state of Mexico. She was the eldest of 2 children. Her mother, Syra, had a difficult time giving birth to she, as she was born much earlier than expected. At birth, she has very low weight, causing doctors to be concerned about her chances of survival, and they expressed this to her parents. Mariana spent her first 2 months in a hospital's special ward for premature infants. Her mother prayed constantly for her recovery, and prayers were answered. Her condition improved rapidly, she gained weight, and by New Year's 2001, she was discharged home. So, the girl's parents celebrated the holiday with their daughter. While she grew up slim and beautiful, her health remained fragile from an early age. When Mariana was 4 years old, her family welcomed a second child, a baby boy named Bernardo. She adored her younger brother and helped her parents care for him from an early age. The 2 sisters were extremely close and almost inseparable. At the age of 6, Mariana was diagnosed with epilepsy, which required her to take regular medication to reduce the chances of seizures. Thanks to effective treatment and regular supervision from experts, her condition was well managed, allowing her to live a relatively normal life, much like other children her age. She pays great attention to health care, always follows a routine and takes medicine on time. Mariana draws very well and loved music. She was kind, sincere, and open-hearted. Everyone who knew her spoke highly of her. Despite this, she was very modest and shy, especially during her teenage years. She had only a few close friends, rarely went on dates, avoided parties, and hardly interacted with boys. She preferred spending time at home with her family. Petite and delicate, she looks much younger than her actual age. Although she is 16, she is often mistaken for being 13. Her care and love for animals is demonstrated by her regular care of homeless animals, feeding them, treating them, and finding them a safe home. While in high school, she dreamed of becoming a veterinarian to provide professional care to animals in need. Mariana's parents often described her as too naive and trusting. This made them worry that someone would take advantage of her innocence and harm her. The neighborhood where her family lived was generally peaceful, and most of the residents know each other. However, their street was lined with many shops employing migrant workers, often unofficially. Some of these workers even lived inside the shops because they lacked housing. Of course, among these workers there are those with criminal records. However, the shop owner sees no problem with these workers, as long as they perform their duties responsibly. About 50 meters from Mariana's house is a butcher shop where her parents often go to buy meat. The shop owner employed 4 workers, 2 locals who managed the sales and 2 outsiders who handled unloading, preparing the meat, and cleaning the shop. The outsiders lived in an attic on the shop's 2nd floor. As Mariana grew up, her parents occasionally asked her to do errands, such as buying meat at this butcher shop. There, she repeatedly encountered Juan Cruz Quintero Martinez, a handyman who lived on the 2nd floor. Just his appearance was enough to make her extremely scared. She often told her parents about this, describing his sinister gaze that made her blood run cold. However, he never approached or interacted with her, he only looked at her. Since there was no specific reason to accuse him, her parents decided it was best to not let her go to that store anymore. Instead, they began doing the shopping themselves. Then, one committed a minor theft, leading the store owner to fire him. From then on, no one heard from him for about a year. However, at the start of summer 2017, he showed up at the store again, asking his former employer for his job back. Surprisingly, he was rehired and moved back into the 2nd floor of the store. One day, Cyrus' niece was visiting their family. At that time, Mariana and her younger brother, Bernardo, were also at home because they have summer vacation. That morning, only Orlando, her father, had left the house around 9 a.m. Syra asked Mariana to go to the local supermarket to buy groceries for breakfast. Normally, she didn't let Mariana go out alone, but she thought her daughter was old enough to handle the task quickly and safely. It was bright outside, the streets were busy, and she believed nothing bad could possibly happen. Syra gave Mariana some money and asked her to buy milk, eggs, and vegetables. When little girl left the house, she wore an old t-shirt and pajama pants. The store was less than a few hundred meters away, so the trip to buy the groceries and return home in no more than 30 minutes. However, when an hour passed and little girl still hadn't returned, Syra became worried. She had left her phone at home, so Syra, holding her little niece in her arms, went out to search for her daughter. Syra walked to the store and asked the cashiers if they had seen Mariana, a young girl wearing glasses. They told Cyrus that the girl had been there, bought the groceries a couple of hours ago, and left. At that moment, Syra began to realize that something terrible had happened to her daughter. She hurried back home, asked Bernardo to watch over her niece, and went out again to continue the search. Syra began asking neighbors, street vendors, and passers-by if they had seen Mariana. However, the little girl seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Immediately after that, Syra immediately contacted the police and called her husband, Orlando. He took a break from work and rushed home to help search for Mariana. By the time the police arrived, dozens of neighbors, along with relatives and friends of the Baltira family, joined the search for Mariana. They distributed flyers with her picture. Initially, police asked the parents if their daughter might have gone on a date, met a friend, or visited someone. Her parents firmly denied these theories, insisting that she would never leave without informing them, especially since she had gone to the store in home clothes and carry a grocery bag. The area where Mariana disappeared had surveillance cameras, but almost none of them were functioning. Despite searching all day, no clues or traces of little girl were found. As night fell, the initial anxiety and panic turned into despair. The parents began to fear the worst, that their daughter would no longer live. On July 28, around 8 a.m., Mariana's parents received a call from a relative who lived nearby. The relative informed them that several police cars had arrived at the butcher's shop. Then, they quickly got ready and went to the scene. However, the police did not allow them inside, claiming that the situation had nothing to do with their daughter. Despite this, they were still resolutely not to leave. A few minutes later, after inspecting the premises, a police officer approached Mariana's father, Orlando, and informed him that the body of a young girl, matching the description of Mariana, had been found on the second floor of the building. The body was lifeless and severely mutilated. Orlando was asked to come inside for identification, but the officers strongly advised against it, warning that the scene was extremely gruesome. When Orlando entered and saw the body of his beloved daughter lying in a pool of blood, he felt like the whole world had collapsed. He was at a loss as to how to break the sad news to his wife, who was waiting outside. The cause of death was determined to be massive blood loss from a deep wound to the stomach. It was later discovered that the criminal had cut out the girl's stomach while she was still alive and left her to bleed to death. Experts concluded that Mariana died in the early hours of July 28, just hours before her body was discovered. This meant she had been alive for nearly 24 hours after her disappearance. During that time, the murderer continuously tortured the girl. Then he caused the wound that caused her death. The murder weapon was identified as a butcher knife, which was found on the floor near her body. The store owner discovered the horrific incident when he came to work in the morning. According to the butcher shop owner, every last Thursday of the month, the shop closes for cleaning. On this day, the owner focused on organizational tasks, held meetings with suppliers, and submitted reports to the tax inspectorate. Meanwhile, the employees disinfected and cleaned the premises. On Thursday morning, July 27, 2017, when the owner arrived at the store, he immediately noticed bloodstains on the floor. At first, he thought one of his employees who lived on the second floor might have been injured. However, upon going upstairs, he was stunned to see his employee's belongings covered in blood, as well as a knife and the body of a young girl in a pool of blood. Additionally, a significant amount of money was missing from the cash register, which the criminal had likely taken in fleeing the scene. 2 employees who lived and worked at the store immediately became suspects. However, an hour later, one of them arrived at the store, just as shocked as everyone by what had happened. He said that the day before, he was busy, so he had to go back to his hometown, and the other employee agreed to cover his shift. The police determined his account to be truthful, as there was no evidence placing him at the crime scene. As a result, he was removed from the list of suspects. By that time, investigators had obtained CCTV footage from the supermarket where Mariana was shopping on the last day of her life. The footage showed little girl entering the store, followed a few minutes later by Juan Martinez, the butcher. His behavior was unsettling. He appeared to stalk her, like a predator tracking its prey. Without purchasing anything, he left the supermarket shortly after she. After that, both of them vanished. Although there were street cameras in the area, they were not functioning. Additionally, none of the many passers-by or street vendors reported seeing anything unusual. Mariana's parents were adamant that their daughter would never willingly leave with Juan, regardless of what he might have said or done to persuade her. They believe he must have forced the girl into the butcher shop. However, this raised a question: why hadn't little girl screamed or called for help? Once again, no witnesses noticed anything out of the ordinary. In 2015, Juan came under police scrutiny for harassment and causing serious bodily harm. He had started working as an assistant in a butcher's shop earlier that year. According to the shop owner, he was diligent and raised no concerns for a long time. However, in mid-2016, he was caught stealing money and was fired. After losing his job, he moved back to the suburbs to live with his parents. There, he lived with his old and weak mother and his sister, who was her primary caregiver. Juan took advantage of his family, stealing money and belongings from the house. He abusing alcohol and illegal drugs. He frequently physically assaulted his mother and sister. Eventually, his sister, fed up with his abusive behavior, threatened to report him to the police. Because he was afraid of being arrested by the police, he decided to leave home. He went to his old employer, the owner of a butcher shop, and asked to be rehired. The owner agreed, giving him both a job and allowed him to live on the second floor of the store. This happened in mid-June, about a month before a tragic incident unfolded. At first, Juan performed his work diligently. However, about a week later, he meets Mariana, who has changed and matured over the past year. While little girl avoided any interaction with him and never shopped at the butcher shop, he began stalking her, following her through the streets and observing her daily routes. Another butcher, the who lives with Juan on the second floor, noticed his obsession with Mariana. Little did he know that Juan would soon commit a horrific crime. After Juan was identified as the sole suspect in the rape and murder of Mariana, all available resources were mobilized to find him. The police initially focused on his home, suspecting that his relatives might help him evade capture. However, his sister insisted that he was not welcome there and explained that he knew his family would immediately turn him in to the authorities. She showed no surprise over the horrific crime he had committed. In fact, she revealed that he had previously raped their elderly mother and even attacked her with a knife, threatening to cut her open like a pig if she didn't give him money for drugs. Finding Juan was a top priority for the police because he was highly aggressive, cruel, and a serious threat to others. The money he stole from the cash register could have lasted him a long time, but no one knew what he might do next. Will he reoffend after killing Mariana? For an entire month, the police searched the Morelos area and nearby suburbs, believing he couldn't have gone far. However, over time, they still could not find he. Information about Mariana's murder quickly spread nationwide through the media, causing police forces across the country to simultaneously hunt for the cruel murderer. Juan's photograph was broadcast daily on television, printed on the front pages of newspapers, and plastered on streets nationwide with the label "Ruthless Killer" at large. A substantial bounty was offered for any information about his location or help in capturing him, and the reward amount kept increasing. Yet, despite these efforts, the case made no progress. The search for Juan was very difficult. He had no contact with his family, no friends, no social media accounts, no mobile phone, and he didn't use credit cards. After 6 months of trying to locate him without any success, the reward for information about him was raised to about $250,000. Even so, there were no leads. Juan was finally captured in August 2019, 2 years after Mariana's murder. He was found nearly 1,000 kilometers away from the crime scene. In another state, thanks to an elderly woman who recognized him on the street. She noticed his suspicious behavior, as he constantly hid his face with a hood and sunglasses, and reported him to the police. She unaware that he was one of the most wanted criminals in Mexico. Juan was arrested right on the street, and to the surprise of the authorities, he did not resist. He calmly extended his hands, allowing officers to put handcuffs on him. The next day, after confirming his identity, the authorities transported him to Morelos, where the crime took place. He was placed in custody in a local prison while awaiting trial. In May 2022, 5 years after the tragic incident, the court sentenced Juan Cruz Quintero Martinez, who committed the murder and rape, to life in prison without parole. He must also pay approximately $49,000 in compensation for the damages he caused to Mariana's family. Mariana's parents and younger brother expressed that the arrest of her killer brought them great relief, as it ensured he could no longer harm other girls. However, they also acknowledged that no punishment, not even life imprisonment or restitution, could ease the pain in their hearts. Their beloved daughter and older sister was gone, and they would have to carry this sorrow for the rest of their lives. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Brittany Tovar. Compassion is a valuable quality that not everyone has. It's understandable why some people hesitate to help strangers. Our story today illustrates the potential consequences of compassion mixed with misplaced trust. 45-year-old Brittany Tovar lives far away from her family and doesn't keep in touch. She rarely shares her experiences or seeks advice from loved ones, nor does she receive much support from them. Many people say she is a helper. Unfortunately, this trait led her to a tragic situation. After finishing school, Brittany dreamed of becoming an actress, so she headed to Hollywood, hoping to pursue her dream of a film career. However, she was unable to achieve her dream of becoming an actress. Brittany then returned to Saint Augustine. She decided to become a real estate staff while also working part-time as a photographer. Brittany spent a lot of time exploring the city, looking for real estate for her clients, and taking architectural photos. This new path proved to be much more successful than her acting aspirations. She gained clients and later collaborated with many clients. Over the years, Brittany established herself as a popular real estate staff. She earned enough money to buy a nice house and lived a quiet, peaceful, but somewhat lonely life. The beach club became her second home, where she enjoyed singing by the beach and hanging out with a group of friends. On July 6, 2010, she followed her usual routine and then met up with friends in the evening. Brittany was friendly and seemed to be having a good time. However, she did not intend to stay long and left the party around 9:00 p.m. On her way home, she stopped at a nearby gas station to get gas. For the next 2 days, Brittany's family and friends were unable to reach her. They called and texted, but she did not respond. Her friends were very worried. Brittany was known for being punctual and responsible, so her sudden disappearance was unusual. Although she could have gone somewhere for work, she always informed her friends of her plans. Worried about her safety, several friends, including her best friend Brenda, went to her house to check on her. At this time, her family too were worried about her not responding to their calls and texts. When her friends arrived at Brittany's house, they immediately noticed that her car was not in the driveway. From the outside, Brittany's house looked completely normal. There were no signs of forced entry or anything that would indicate a search. Her friends started knocking on the door, but no one answered when they knocked. Brittany, who lived with 2 dogs and 2 cats, surprisingly, the dogs were gone with her, while the cats were still in the house. It was unthinkable that Brittany would leave her pets alone for so long without arranging for someone to care for them. Brittany's friends then contacted her sister to share their concerns. They decided to go into the house to feed the cats and investigate further. For convenience, they called a locksmith to help them unlock the door. Once inside, the first thing they noticed was the unusual level of cleanliness. Normally, Brittany's house would have some clutter due to her living with animals, but now it was spotless and sparkling. The air was filled with a strong smell of cleaning products. The cats were very hungry. Brittany's house was unusually cold, and the air conditioning was running at full blast, much to her friend's surprise. She was known to be frugal and would not leave the air conditioning on when she was away. Ultimately, Brittany's friends could not make sense of the strange details they noticed, so they went to the nearest police station to report her missing. The police were initially unconcerned, citing the usual excuses. They stated that as an adult, she had the right to manage her own time and was not required to inform anyone of her whereabouts. Brittany's family, which includes 3 brothers and a sister, hired a private investigator to investigate, and the family also contacted the police. Several police officers went to Brittany's home to assist in the investigation. The police conducted a thorough search, but they found no useful information. When the police looked into her personal life, they learned that Brittany did not appear to have any enemies and had no connections to the criminal world. She was known to be kind, decent, and generally stayed out of trouble. However, Brittany often discussed her problems with a woman named Anne. Initially, their relationship was warm and friendly, but eventually turned hostile. According to her family, Brittany welcomed Anne into her home, which demonstrated her generous nature, as she often helped others in need. Witnesses noted that the 2 women often argued and even fought, leading to significant conflict between them. Brittany went to court to obtain a restraining order against Anne because she felt threatened by Anne's behavior. She believed her life was in danger and wanted to settle the dispute legally. She gathered all the necessary documents and evidence to support her case. Interestingly, she disappeared the day before the hearing was set to begin. This was particularly puzzling to those who knew her, as it seemed unlikely that she would vanish right before such an important event. Brittany had been determined to address this issue and had prepared extensively, so it was hard to believe she would willingly miss her own court hearing. After learning about Brittany and Anne, the police suspected that Anne might have been involved in the incident and wanted to question her to find out what had happened between her and Brittany. The police quickly called Anne in for questioning. Anne explained that she had housing problems and that she and Brittany had been friends who supported each other at work. However, things changed when Anne's boyfriend planned to visit from Ireland. He had come to the United States with the intention of finding a job and living with Anne. The search for housing began at this point. Anne reached out to Brittany, hoping she could provide a room for a while for herself and her partner, even though they were essentially strangers to Brittany. Initially, Brittany agreed to help her friend, but after some time living together, she changed her mind. Brittany confided in her friends that the couple was very difficult to live with, which created significant tension between the 2 women. Their friendship started to deteriorate quickly. The situation escalated into a fight, leading to Brittany's arrest after Anne called the police. Brittany claimed that the fight occurred because the couple refused to leave her home, and that Anne and her boyfriend attacked her, forcing her to defend herself. Brittany spent the night at the police station and received a suspended sentence, along with requirements to attend anger management classes and complete community service. Additionally, she was ordered to stay away from Anne and her boyfriend. Surprisingly, Anne chose to remain nearby, and she and her boyfriend joined the beach club's serenade, where they intentionally showed off in front of Brittany. What once were friends became enemies. Brittany accused Anne of acting provocatively and aggressively, claiming that Anne was intentionally trying to provoke her, which led Brittany to seek legal protection. To support her claims of threats from Anne, Brittany started carrying a small video camera to capture evidence. The hearing was scheduled for the day after Brittany was last seen at a party. Witnesses confirmed that after leaving the party, she intended to go to a gas station and then return home. Brittany did not plan to go anywhere else. she hadn't consumed alcohol and left early to prepare for her court appearance. The hearing aimed to establish a permanent restraining order against Anne, who had been stalking Brittany. Given the circumstances, Anne had a motive to harm Brittany to avoid facing consequences in court. When questioned by police, Anne remained calm and cooperative, but insisted that she had nothing to do with Brittany's disappearance. She also provided a solid, verifiable alibi. Police were not quick to eliminate Anne as a suspect because they had no other leads. Then a major breakthrough came in Hopkins, South Carolina. 2 dogs belonging to Brittany were found wandering around different neighborhoods across the city. The dogs had tags on them, and when scanned at a veterinary clinic, it was discovered that they were from Florida and belonged to Brittany. After examining her dogs, no other important clues to the investigation were found. Both dogs were taken to a shelter. The search for Brittany continues. By this time, the police had learned that for over 10 years, Brittany had provided temporary shelter to at least 8 people struggling with housing and other life challenges. Brittany did not charge them rent. Instead, her guests helped with housework, cleaning, cooking, and gardening. Unfortunately, her generosity may have attracted dangerous people. The last person she took in was Joseph Dean Roberts, 26, whom Brittany had met just weeks before she went missing. They met at a local bookstore, where she realized he needed help. Joseph quickly shared his heartbreaking story during a brief conversation with Brittany. He explained that he had become homeless after losing his job at a nearby gas station. Brittany, known for her kindness, offered him a temporary place to stay in her home so he could get back on his feet. In exchange, she simply asked for his help with household chores. Several friends of Brittany's met Joseph, and she introduced him at the beach club Serenade. Everyone described him as a modest and pleasant young man who seemed friendly and calm. Joseph shared that he had endured harsh treatment from his parents since childhood and openly recounted his difficult life. His situation was complex, leading him to live on the streets, but he was determined to persevere. He saw Brittany as a true savior. She even bought him a computer to help him develop his web design skills and offered her assistance with her work. However, as the police began to investigate him, he appeared increasingly suspicious. A few days after Brittany went missing, he was stopped for speeding while driving her vehicle in Evanston, Wyoming. After speaking with the police, they found no evidence to charge Joseph, so he was released. As police examined the final days of Brittany's life, Joseph's behavior raised more suspicions. Consequently, he became the primary suspect in her disappearance. His actions and his relationship with Brittany were concerning, which drew the police's attention for multiple reasons. Joseph was the last known person to see Brittany alive on the evening of July 6th, after returning from a party. It is believed that Brittany returned home after a visit to a gas station. Alarmingly, Joseph used Brittany's car right after she went missing. The police began investigating his activities for more information. On the same day, he was spotted in Olmar, where he bought several items, including a tent, a black t-shirt, and shorts. This raised suspicion because Joseph had no money, no job, and no permanent residence, making it odd that he could afford new clothes immediately after Brittany's disappearance. Police discovered that the payment method used for certain purchases was Brittany's bank card. This indicated that he had stolen from her. They decided to investigate the transactions made with this card more closely. It became apparent that after Brittany went missing, he frequently used her card across multiple states. At this point, Joseph had fled, prompting police to issue a public alert through the media, warning that Joseph could be armed and dangerous. At this point, everyone was hopeful that Brittany would be found alive. The search for Joseph took longer than expected, creating urgency for Brittany's safety. As time passed, the likelihood of her being alive decreased. During this period, her family and friends pressured police to act quickly, fearing that any delay might jeopardize her life. Later, Joseph was arrested for petty theft in Seattle. Police, who were focused on searching for Brittany, were notified of Joseph's arrest and quickly traveled to the city to question him as a potential kidnapper. People still hoped that Brittany was still alive and in custody. They speculated that Joseph's purchase of a tent might indicate that he had hidden her from the city. During questioning, Joseph revealed a shocking truth. He said that on July 6, 2010, shortly after Brittany returned from a party, they got into an argument. Brittany insulted Joseph, accusing him of being unhygienic and smelly, and he claimed she was being very rude. This angered Joseph, causing him to lose control. In a fit of rage, he grabbed a hammer and hit Brittany in the head multiple times. Joseph said Brittany did not die from her injuries. Instead, she fell to the floor, bleeding and still breathing. Joseph then walked into the kitchen, grabbed a large knife, and returned to kill Brittany. After committing the crime, he quickly began cleaning up the crime scene. He disposed of all the evidence by throwing it in the trash. To clean up the blood, he used cleaning supplies found in the house. Initially, he thought about hiding Brittany's body in the attic of the house, but he was unable to carry her up the stairs. He then wrapped the body in bed sheets. Before dawn, he placed her body in the trunk of Brittany's car to avoid attracting the attention of the neighbors. He then planned to drive far away from the crime scene. When asked by the police why Joseph took the dogs out of the house and chased them away, but left the cats alone, he mentioned that the dogs might attract attention. So Joseph decided to take the dogs with him when he hid the body. He left the cats behind because they were well behaved and could roam the streets freely, so he was not worried about them. He believed that the cats would find food and would not attract attention. After cleaning up, Joseph put the 2 dogs in the car and drove to Lysistrata, near Highway 95. Once there, he took Brittany's body into the woods, intending to bury her. However, Joseph did not have the proper tools and could not dig a grave by hand, so he decided to leave Brittany's body in the ground, believing that it would soon be eaten by a wild animal. On the way back, Joseph released the 2 dogs onto the road. He then returned to Brittany's house and went to bed. In the morning, he realized that Brittany's family and friends would soon start looking for her. He decided to escape in her car. He took all the money and valuables in the house, along with her card. He had known the password to the card for a long time because he had used it many times to buy groceries. He traveled across several states to avoid the police. Then, when he ran out of money and tried to steal from someone else, he was discovered and arrested. Police focused their search on Brittany's body. Joseph pinpointed the location of the body on a map, just a few hundred yards from Highway 95. Her body was later found, but it was badly decomposed, making identification impossible. The only way to confirm her identity was through dental records, which later confirmed the body was Brittany's. The medical examiner noted severe head trauma caused by a blunt object and a knife wound causing injury to the neck. When Brittany's family learned what had happened, they were stunned. Joseph, who Brittany had helped, had murdered her. Friends and family had warned her that it could be dangerous, but Brittany was confident that she could avoid dangerous people. Tragically, her instincts had led to disastrous consequences. Not long before Brittany disappeared, she confided in her friends that Joseph was starting to annoy her. When she returned home, she found him going through her belongings, and she noticed that small amounts of money were missing. They often argued, and Brittany considered kicking him out, but she never got the chance. Meanwhile, the police were investigating Joseph's troubled past. They discovered that he had been dishonest with Brittany. He was actually homeless. He had been living in a tent at Brody Beach, Florida. He was skilled at presenting himself as a victim and manipulating others. She had invited him to live in her house, as he appeared to be a nice and honest young man who openly discussed his mental health issues. However, shortly after moving in, his behavior changed drastically. He began to neglect his personal hygiene and started using illegal drugs in his room. When Brittany found out, she asked him to leave. However, instead of leaving, he decides to confront Brittany, ultimately leading to her death. After Joseph confessed, he was quickly arrested for first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances. Although he claimed to be insane, a mental health evaluation determined that he was competent to stand trial. This led to a new legal battle, with both the defense and the prosecution making strong arguments. Joseph's mental health was a contentious issue, raising the possibility that he could evade punishment and instead be sent to a treatment clinic. As a result, the lawyer and the prosecutor came to an agreement. Joseph accepted the plea deal, agreeing to plead guilty to the lesser charge of second-degree murder. As a result, Joseph Dean Roberts was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Brittany's family felt the sentence was too lenient for the severity of the crime, but their efforts to appeal the verdict were unsuccessful. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Nicole Brown Simpson. Nicole Brown Simpson was born in Frankfurt, Germany, in 1959, and had an older sister named Denise. Looking for a fresh start, Nicole's family moved to the United States, settling in Garden Grove, California. She was later joined by two younger sisters, Dominique and Tanya. Nicole quickly adapted to life in America. With her blonde hair and gentle personality, she won the hearts of those around her. In 1977, an important meeting took place at a prestigious club in Beverly Hills, where Nicole worked as a waitress. She met Orenthal James Simpson, a football star at the height of his fame, who was also involved in acting and advertising. Orenthal was married to Marguerite and had 3 children, but a relationship formed between Nicole and Orenthal. The 12-year age gap did not seem to be a problem for them. However, tragedy struck when Orenthal's son drowned in a swimming pool accident, which deeply affected the family and strained their relationship. Orenthal and Marguerite then divorced, and he began dating Nicole officially. In 1985, Nicole married Orenthal in a lavish mansion located in the upscale Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. After the marriage, she adopted her husband's last name and became known as Nicole Brown Simpson. However, her life changed dramatically during their marriage. The couple had 2 children, Sydney, born in 1985, and Justin, born in 1987. Nicole was a devoted mother who chose to care for her children herself, engaging in activities with them and planning family vacations. Besides taking care of her children, she started a small interior decoration business. Although it seemed like they had a perfect family life, this idyllic situation was not meant to last. Orenthal repeatedly cheated on his wife and treated her badly. The first warning sign of his abusive behavior was when he took a children's baseball bat and smashed a Mercedes. Although the incident was recorded, Nicole chose not to press charges. His lack of consequences only made his behavior worse, leading to increased violence. Friends reported bruises on Nicole, and Orenthal threatened to kill her. She called the police several times during his attacks. Orenthal admitted to mistreating Nicole and admitted to hitting her, but he claimed that both parties were at fault. The judge ordered Orenthal to complete 12 hours of community service and pay a $200 fine. The couple continued to argue, and after 7 years of marriage, Nicole filed for divorce in 1990. Nicole occasionally contacted Orenthal and attempted to reconcile with him, partly due to pressure from her parents, whose business relied heavily on Orenthal's support. These efforts were unsuccessful, however. Nicole and her children moved into a rented house in Brentwood. After the divorce, Nicole received a $430,000 settlement and $10,000 in monthly child support. In December 1992, while skiing in Aspen, Colorado, Nicole met Cato Kalin. They became close friends, and Cato moved into a guest house on Nicole's property for a year. He paid rent and helped care for her kids. Despite getting a restraining order against Orenthal for stalking, Nicole felt paranoid, believing she saw him everywhere. In January 1994, for safety reasons, Nicole and her children moved to a different 3-story rental house in the same area. Cato also relocated with them, renting a guest house in her yard. Slowly, life started to get better, and Nicole had big plans for the future. Just before the tragic events, Nicole met and began talking to Ronald Goldman. That day, she attended a dance concert for her daughter. Her ex-husband Orenthal was also present. After the concert, around 6 p.m., Nicole and her children went to their favorite restaurant for dinner, where they met Ronald. They chatted for a while, and then Nicole returned home to her children. Nicole accidentally left her glasses at a restaurant and Ronald found them. He decided to bring them to her at her home in Los Angeles. However, this meeting led to a tragic situation. At 10:45 p.m., Cato, Nicole's neighbor, heard unusual noises from her house and went outside to investigate. He noticed Nicole's dog acting strangely and upon closer inspection, saw blood and bodies, prompting him to call 911. When police arrived, they discovered a horrific scene. Nicole and Ronald's bodies were found dead. Nicole had been stabbed multiple times. An autopsy revealed that she had been stabbed 7 times in the neck and head, along with a deep cut to her throat. Due to Orenthal's history of abusing Nicole during their marriage and his recent stalking, he quickly became the prime suspect in the double murder. Police began investigating the case, and a witness came forward. The limousine driver reported that he had taken the soccer star Orenthal to the Los Angeles airport, where he caught a flight to Chicago, arriving at 5:30 a.m. Later, airline employees were interviewed, including a flight attendant who mentioned that Orenthal kept his hands in his gym bag throughout the flight, implying that he was trying to hide something. Later, Orenthal checked into the Orr Plaza Hotel at 6:15 a.m. and received the keys for room 915. Approximately 30 minutes later, a man at a gas station told police he saw someone resembling Orenthal digging in the woods near the hotel. Los Angeles police contacted Orenthal and asked him to come back for questioning, and he agreed. While in his hotel room, he made 10 phone calls, including one to a woman named Katie, as well as calls to airlines and a car rental service. He purchased tickets for a flight back to Los Angeles and requested a car to take him to the airport. The reason for his call to Katie is still unclear. Later, Orenthal contacted the LAPD at 8:21 a.m. to inform them that he would be returning soon. A hotel employee noted that at 8:30 a.m., Orenthal went to the lobby, visibly upset that his car had not yet arrived, as he was in a hurry to reach the airport. In a fit of rage, he slammed his hand into a wall, causing it to bleed. He then asked a hotel employee to bandage his hand. A car finally arrived 5 minutes later, and Orenthal was taken to the airport, where he boarded a 9:15 a.m. flight back to Los Angeles. Police flew to Chicago after receiving a tip from an eyewitness. With the support of local police, they searched the wooded area near the hotel using metal detectors, anticipating that Orenthal had concealed the murder weapon, a knife, there. However, their search was unsuccessful. They also searched the hotel room and found bloody sheets, broken glass, and a torn piece of paper with a person's name on it. They also collected fingerprints and blood found on the bathroom floor. After Orenthal returned to Los Angeles, he arrived at the murder scene at 11:00 a.m. Orenthal was then arrested and taken to the police station. He was offered a lie detector test, but he refused. This raised further suspicion. Orenthal pleaded not guilty, but Nicole's family believed that he was responsible for her and Ronald's deaths. However, there was no evidence against him at the time, so he was released. Orenthal seized the opportunity and escaped in his white car. Police from Fort Bronca then began a pursuit, and all nearby patrol cars joined in the pursuit. police chased Orenthal's white Ford along the highway. Several camera-equipped helicopters followed the car, along with patrol cars. After traveling 100 kilometers, police stopped the Ford and arrested Orenthal, who became the prime suspect in a double murder case. During the investigation, a friend of Nicole's reported that Orenthal had said he would kill Nicole if he caught her. At the time of her murder, Nicole was in her yard with Ronald, which may have sparked jealousy and violent behavior from Orenthal, who had a history of violence. Family members have mentioned that Orenthal had mental health issues. He suffered from migraines and sometimes talked to himself when he forgot to take his medication. A lengthy and complicated trial ensued, attracting national attention. The prosecution portrayed Orenthal as a man whose jealousy had spiraled out of control, leading him to commit the murder. The prosecution presented evidence of Orenthal's guilt, including a bloody shoe print of a size 10, matching the size he wore, found at the crime scene. In addition, to the left of these prints, drops of blood were found. A bloody glove and a knitted hat, possibly belonging to the perpetrator, were also discovered. Hours after the murder, police observed multiple cuts on Orenthal's left hand. These injuries were linked to the blood found at the scene. Blood was also found in Orenthal's car, and analysis confirmed that the blood at the crime scene matched his blood type. From the beginning, Orenthal and his legal team worked hard to prove his innocence. The defense pointed to flaws in the police investigation. They argued that the crime scene was handled by inexperienced forensic scientists, and that the crime scene was not properly secured, which could have led to evidence contamination. They argued that the evidence presented was unreliable. By rigorously cross-examining the prosecution's witnesses, the defense sought to undermine their credibility. Although the witnesses gave explanations for each issue, the jury still doubted the reliability of some of the evidence. The prosecution argued that he killed Nicole and Ronald out of jealousy. Reports of domestic violence were revealed. However, the defense claimed that Orenthal was the victim of a racist police frame-up. This defense strategy resonated with many African Americans who had experienced injustice and discrimination in the legal system. The idea that dark skin was a significant factor in police bias gained traction, leading to significant public support for Orenthal. Meanwhile, many white Americans continued to believe that he was guilty. Orenthal stated that he represented not only his own interests, but also the interests of all Americans. He was extremely popular in the 1960s, a time when Black Americans were starting to protest against oppression. Orenthal was pivotal in highlighting racial inequalities in the U.S. Throughout this effort, several corrupt officials within the upper levels of power, especially from the Los Angeles Police Department, were uncovered. However, there is still much debate about Orenthal's guilt in the murder case. It is suspected that the issue of racial discrimination was deliberately introduced to mislead the jury. Meanwhile, the prosecution firmly argued that Orenthal was the culprit. They presented evidence collected at the crime scene. After examining Orenthal's pool, prosecutors presented evidence of his abusive relationship with Nicole. However, Orenthal denied these allegations during his trial, and surprisingly, the jury appeared to ignore them. The prosecution also highlighted his attempts to evade justice. In response, the defense argued that he feared for his life because of the racist attitudes of the Los Angeles police, claiming that he was worried about being shot before he could explain his story. The prosecutor said, "Just before her death, Nicole confided to a friend that she feared for her life and well-being because Orenthal sometimes lost control. He was described as jealous." Nicole's diary contained relevant entries that the prosecutor's office used throughout the trial. One of the main pieces of evidence that pointed to Orenthal's guilt was a bloody glove found at the crime scene. A similar glove was later found by police at Orenthal's home. Additionally, a former police officer has published a book detailing various pieces of evidence that point to Orenthal's guilt. During the trial, the prosecutor presented the glove to the court and asked Orenthal to try it on. And it turned out that the glove did not fit him. The glove was so tight that he would have difficulty holding or using a knife. It seems that the prosecution's decision to have Simpson try on the glove was a mistake. The prosecutor's office attempted to indict Orenthal, although there is no direct evidence that he was involved in this tragedy. The defense argued that the real criminal responsible for the deaths was still at large. To bolster their case, the prosecution organized a tour of Orenthal's home, inviting jurors and defense representatives. During the tour, several photos were displayed on the walls, showing Orenthal with members of the black community. This appeared to be intended to suggest a connection between him and the crime, in an attempt to discredit Orenthal. The visitors included people who knew Orenthal, and they confirmed that they had never seen these photos before. Was the prosecution orchestrating a conspiracy to frame an innocent person? The trial lasted 16 months, during which Orenthal was under house arrest. After both sides presented their closing arguments, the jury began their deliberations. 4 hours later, they returned with a verdict of not guilty for Orenthal James Simpson on charges of double murder. He was acquitted. Orenthal smiled and thanked the jury, and 2 jurors smiled back. However, when the jury left the courtroom, the families of the victims were disappointed with the verdict. The verdict brought a range of emotions. Orenthal's fans celebrated, believing it was a victory for their idol, while the African American community saw it as a significant achievement for their race. Nicole and Ronald's families, on the other hand, were outraged. The trial attracted widespread attention. 9 months after the verdict, Orenthal met with a news reporter to discuss the difficulties he faced after the trial. He mentioned that he had built a career in sports and film, but a long break and reputation issues caused that career to collapse. During this time, he focused on his children and friends. When his ex-wife was alive, their children lived with her. After she passed away, her relatives took the children away during the proceedings. Now, he is fighting for custody of his daughter and son. In 1996, after the criminal trial concluded, the judge granted Orenthal's request for full custody of him and Nicole. Nicole's parents were furious about the ruling and continued to seek custody, but were unsuccessful. They finally dropped their bid in 2006. In December, a civil lawsuit was filed against Orenthal by the families of Nicole and Ronald. This time, the proceedings moved quickly, with the prosecutor's office presenting strong arguments and compelling evidence against Orenthal. This included incontrovertible evidence such as photographs from the time of his arrest, showing him wearing the same shoes that had left prints at the crime scene. This time, Orenthal was confident and decided not to hire an experienced legal team. However, the situation was more complicated than he expected. The case progressed, resulting in a $3.5 million settlement awarded to the victims' families. However, Orenthal never paid most of that money. After these events, he tried to revive his career and later wrote a book. In this book, he recounts how he would commit the murder if he were guilty. The controversial work has outraged the victims' families, who still believe Orenthal was responsible for the murders of Nicole and Ronald. The proceeds from the book's sale were given to the family of Ronald, who was murdered. After the hearings, the case of the double murder faded from public attention and remained inactive for many years. The murder weapon, a knife, was never located. In 2016, the Los Angeles police reported that a retired police had submitted a knife, which was supposedly found years earlier by a construction worker during the demolition of Orenthal's house. However, testing revealed that this knife was not the murder weapon. In 2007, when he and a group of armed men broke into the home of a local sports memorabilia seller, Orenthal later claimed that they were only trying to retrieve valuable items that he considered family heirlooms. for which the two parties had previously been unable to agree on a price. Orenthal maintained that the sole purpose of the break-in was to reclaim his property. Orenthal tried to steal a sports trophy, so he hired the best legal team to defend him in court. It seemed like his situation was dire, especially after police discovered that he and 4 others had used weapons to trespass on someone else's property. Orenthal was charged with 2 counts of robbery and assault with a weapon. Orenthal James Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison. The lawyers argued that a 33-year sentence for a failed robbery, with no injuries involved, is excessive. Despite their arguments, the court maintained that its decision was in line with state law, and the appeals were denied. Orenthal was in prison. Some saw him as a champion of justice, while others saw him as a ruthless killer who deserved to be locked up. During his time in prison, tensions between the black community and the police escalated, leading to a number of disturbing incidents. Orenthal was incarcerated for nearly 9 years. At the age of 70, he was unexpectedly paroled under a new amendment aimed at rehabilitating prisoners. After a vote by the board, he was released in October 2017. After these events, Orenthal spent the rest of his life in a peaceful environment surrounded by his loved ones. His children, a son and a daughter from Nicole, believe that their father was wrongly convicted and a victim of discrimination. There is currently no update on the resolution of the murder case of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. The true nature of Orenthal remains controversial. Was he a fighter for justice? Or was he a ruthless killer who used his wealth and influence to escape the consequences of his actions? Hello everyone, today we will be looking at another case. The case of Rachel Del Tondo. Rachel Del Tondo, 33 years old, was an elementary school teacher in Midland. She loved her job and the children she taught. She is known to be a friendly, approachable woman who has a very close relationship with her family, especially her mother. She is often a caring and nurturing presence towards her family, which can be seen through the close relationship she maintains with her mother. Despite being an adult, she lived with her parents, Lisa Del Tondo and Joe Del Tondo, in Pennsylvania. Rachel was in a serious relationship with Frank Catrappa, a childhood friend. As they grew up, their friendship turned into a romantic relationship. Frank, the son of a retired police officer, was building a successful trucking business and earned the nickname the Wolf of Aliquippa from a local online magazine. Rachel was known for her kindness, especially toward struggling students. Frank often spoke highly of her, calling her beautiful, sweet, sincere, and big-hearted. He confessed, "I was in love with her. We had good times and bad." However, Rachel's friend, Jen Gloven, described their relationship as unstable. Frank expressed her desire to get married and have children, which troubled Rachel. She frequently questioned, "When will I get a ring?" Rachel was determined not to move out of her parents' house until she was married, adhering to her Italian upbringing, which emphasized living together only after marriage. She didn't want to upset her parents and often encouraged Frank to propose, especially after dating for 5 years. The couple finally traveled to Paris, where Frank proposed to Rachel with a 6-carat diamond engagement ring. Excited, Rachel called her mother to share the news, and they began planning the wedding. Frank suggested creating a prenuptial agreement, and she happily agreed to the terms, feeling secure in her love for him. However, over time, Rachel changed her mind about the prenup, saying that her mother, Lisa, disapproved of it. As a result, the wedding plans came to a sudden halt. Despite staying together, they started experiencing frequent arguments and misunderstandings. Her family became increasingly critical of Frank. He noticed that as he tried to give Rachel space, her jealousy grew. One weekend in 2016, Frank went to the Super Bowl with friends, including some girls, which made Rachel extremely jealous. Frank thought her reaction was paranoid. A year later, both Rachel and Frank reconsidered their decision to marry. but the issues in their relationship continued. Every year, Frank hosted a large birthday party at a bar in downtown Aliquippa. During one of these celebrations, Rachel attended with her friends Jen and Matt Motz. They hadn't seen each other in months, and after reconnecting, Jen noticed a change in Rachel and asked if something was wrong. Rachel seemed anxious and not like her usual self. "Concerned," Jen said. "I feel like something is wrong. I can't pinpoint it, but it seems like you're involved in something troubling, and I'm worried about you." However, Rachel reacted angrily to Jen's comments, and in a shocking moment, she even struck Jen in the face. This led to a heated argument between them. Frank quickly noticed the escalating situation and rushed over. So disappointed, Jen was in tears and urged Frank to ask Rachel about being in the car with another guy. That night, Jen revealed a secret that Rachel had desperately wanted her to keep. Jen told Frank that nearly a year earlier, during the same weekend he was with other girls, Rachel had done something that jeopardized both her career and her relationship with Frank. Jen remembered how Rachel came to her in tears after the Super Bowl weekend. Rachel was crying and shaking uncontrollably. She shared that she had an unsettling encounter with a 17-year-old football player named Sheldon Jeter. Rachel had first met Sheldon years ago while working as a substitute teacher at his school, and they had become friends. That night, around 11 or 12 o'clock, Sheldon sent Rachel a message on Facebook asking to talk. She agreed to meet him. When they met, Sheldon got into the front passenger seat of her car. Shortly after, the police arrived to check on them. She explained to the officer that everything was fine and that they were just talking, emphasizing that Sheldon was her friend. The police asked if they had used any illegal substances, to which Rachel replied no. When they inquired if they had engaged in any intimate activity in the car, she again said no. Rachel confided all of this to Jen, pleading with her not to share the details, as it was a distressing experience for her. Jen later shared that she felt, in her heart, that Rachel was not telling the truth. When Jen informed Frank about what happened at the party, Rachel insisted that she only wanted to help Sheldon, and Frank believed her. Rachel also accused Jen and Matt of spreading rumors, claiming they said she was using illegal banned substances and having inappropriate relationships with other men. Following this conversation, Frank stopped communicating with Jen and Matt. Rachel supports him on that. However, about a year later, he decided he needed to uncover the truth about what really happened between Rachel and Sheldon. Frank visited the Aliquippa Police Department and requested a report on the incident from Assistant Police Chief Joe Perciavalle. To obtain a copy of the report, he needed to submit an official request. Although Perciavalle initially refused to assist him, his supervisor instructed him to prepare the report because he was friends with Frank. So, Frank was able to read the report that same day. The report revealed significant discrepancies from Rachel's account. Frank was shocked to learn that Rachel and Sheldon were found in her car at around 2 o'clock in the morning, not at 11:00 p.m. as she had claimed. They were discovered in an abandoned parking lot, and the fogged-up windows suggested the car had been parked for a while. The passenger seat was fully reclined. According to the report, Rachel told the police that Sheldon had previously been her student and was now her friend, and they were simply talking. She also expressed concern about her fiancé finding out, fearing he would become angry. Reading the report brought Frank to tears. He was deeply upset and took a copy of the report home. Shortly thereafter, someone used this information to severely damage Rachel's reputation. An anonymous email containing details of the incident was sent to Rachel's school, as well as to the local school board, the media, and even the mayor. Rachel's mother was convinced that Frank was responsible for this. She stated, "He tried to ruin my daughter's life and my family's life. He was jealous of her." Frank, however, denied any involvement but acknowledged that he had shown a copy of the report to someone, Some individuals were aware that Frank not only received the report, but also received a folder containing sensitive personal information, such as social security numbers and driver's licenses, information that should never be shared with the public. This information was also shared through emails. The police speculated that Frank may not have sent the emails himself. Instead, he might have passed the report to someone else who sent it anonymously. A few days after Rachel's report was released, she was suspended from her job. As a result, she stopped eating and sleeping and needed to consult a doctor. She had to stay in the psychiatric ward for 3 days. Rachel's parents denied any connection between their daughter and Sheldon. Lisa maintained that Rachel was simply trying to help a troubled child. However, Sheldon's lawyer, Michael Santacola, argued that Rachel was never just a teacher to Sheldon. Their relationship was much more than a friendship. Santacola claimed that their relationship began long before they were seen together in a car. Sheldon, a star athlete, attracted the attention of many girls. His uncle, Michael Moreland, mentioned that while he knew Sheldon was dating someone, he had no idea it was a teacher. At one point, he suspected that Sheldon's girlfriend might be older than him because she gave him expensive gifts. For Christmas, Sheldon received a costly watch, and when his uncle asked where it came from, Sheldon revealed it was a gift from his girlfriend. Lawyer Santacola believed that Sheldon and Rachel were keeping their relationship a secret. Lisa explained that Rachel was simply helping Sheldon with his studies, but he misunderstood her kindness as romantic interest. Lisa recounted an incident where Sheldon showed up at their house drunk one night and banging on the windows. In response, Lisa pointed an air weapon at him, which made him leave. Sheldon, however, insisted that nothing like that ever occurred. By December 2017, Rachel was unemployed and had cut ties with Frank, as well as distanced herself from Sheldon. She became increasingly antisocial. Rachel's mother was furious about what had happened to her daughter and decided to take action by reaching out to the media. Lisa connected Rachel with John Paul, the manager of an online news service. Although they had never met in person, John reported that he spoke to Rachel several times, during which she claimed to have information about corrupt city officials. Rachel described the city as rotten to the core, where officials were paid to turn a blind eye to illegal behavior. However, John noted that Rachel did not provide any evidence to support her claims. As time went on, Rachel began receiving threats and suspected that the police were following her. She informed John about the threats, which included a warning that she would not survive to see the end of 2018. Her aunt, Jackie Belcastro, confirmed that Rachel had expressed her concerns about this harassment, and there was speculation that Frank might be involved. Frank denied any wrongdoing. In the spring of 2018, Rachel attempted to overcome her fears and resume her normal life. She spent time with Rashawn Bolton, Sheldon's half-brother, who was 32 at the time, and felt safe in his company. However, her new relationship made Sheldon angry. His uncle mentioned that although Sheldon was initially angry, he quickly moved on to another girl. With this, Sheldon had no problems. On Mother's Day, Sunday, May 13, 2018, Rashawn was out of town, so Rachel decided to meet her 17-year-old friend and former student, Lauren Watkins. Rachel told her mother they were going to Hank's Frozen. The girls enjoyed their time together, driving around, listening to music, and chatting. While they were out, they passed by Sheldon. He saw them and sent Lauren a message saying, "I just passed you guys." Lauren replied, "Yes," and Sheldon then asked, "What are you doing?" However, Lauren stopped responding to him. She explained that she took Rachel home to grab a sweatshirt because it was chilly, and then they headed to get ice cream at Hank's. On the way, they picked up another friend, 25-year-old Tyree Jeter, who is Sheldon's half-brother. Sheldon was aware of Rachel's whereabouts that night, and knew when she would be going home because Tyree was texting him. Lauren walked Rachel home, ensuring she reached the side door safely. The house was empty, no cars or people around. Once inside, Rachel's father sat in his favorite chair. Just 4 minutes after Lauren left, Rachel was murdered by weapon. There were no witnesses to the crime. Rachel's parents immediately blamed Sheldon, firmly believing he was responsible for her death. Sheldon's uncle, Moreland, claimed that Sheldon had been at home with his grandfather that night, helping him take care of his elderly father. A few hours after Rachel's death, police arrived at Sheldon's house to question him. Sheldon provided the clothes he wore that night. Next to his bed was a pile of clothes. The police asked, "Are these the same clothes you were wearing?" Answered Sheldon, "Yes, all my clothes are here." But after investigation, the police discovered that he had given them a different set. Attorney Michael Santacola argues that his client is not responsible for the police mistakenly collecting the wrong clothing. However, the statement also mentions that Sheldon displayed no emotion upon learning of Rachel's death. Sheldon's uncle refuted this claim, expressing that Sheldon felt upset, as did everyone who learned of the news. Shortly after Rachel's death, Lauren told reporters that she does not believe Sheldon is capable of such a terrible act, adding that Rachel never expressed fear of him. Sheldon's lawyer asserts that he had no involvement in Rachel's murder, emphasizing that there is no evidence connecting him to the crime. Indeed, police found no evidence linking Sheldon to the crime. Rachel was murdered outside her parents' home in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, where that same night there were 8 unsolved cases. Almost 2 years later, on May 15, 2020, another tragedy struck when Tyrick Pugh, who was considered family by Sheldon and Michael Moreland, was killed. Earlier that day, Tyrick had been with Sheldon and Moreland at an ice cream shop, which drew attention to Sheldon due to their connection. On the night Tyrick was murdered, investigators visited Sheldon's house after discovering that Tyrick's driver's license listed Sheldon's address. Uncle Moreland confirmed that Tyrick occasionally lived with them. Sheldon also explained his whereabouts during the incident, but surveillance camera footage revealed a different timeline. The cameras captured Sheldon leaving the house at 11:10 p.m. that night to buy beer and later returning home alone. Around the time Sheldon returned home alone, a motorist discovered Tyrick's body and called 911. The following day, he was summoned to the police station for questioning. During the interrogation, officers searched Sheldon's house and found a weapon hidden under his mattress. The investigators was later confirmed that this weapon was used to kill Tyrick Pugh. Michael Santacola said that the prosecutor's office tried to force Sheldon to confess to an unsolved crime in the case of Rachel's murder. In early June 2021, Sheldon appeared in court regarding the death of Tyrick Pugh. The cameras took the court, but he did not speak. The jury was shown approximately 2 hours of his police interrogation. The motive for the murder was not specified, but after deliberating for several hours, the jury found Sheldon Jeter guilty of first-degree murder. In Pennsylvania, this conviction carries a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Sheldon's arrest and conviction in the case of Tyrick's murder has reignited focus on the unsolved crime of Rachel Del Tondo's murder. So, Moriarty County District Attorney stated, "There is an active investigation underway. Detectives and prosecutors are working tirelessly." He said that, "I believe we will find answers." Simultaneously, Frank Catrapa has been fully cleared of any charges related to the case of Rachel's murder. After losing her daughter, the Del Tondo family hopes Rachel will be remembered for her life rather than her tragic death. Her mother remarked, "I want everyone to know she was a good person with a big heart." So far, the case of Rachel Del Tondo's murder remains unsolved, and the investigation is ongoing. Welcome back to our channel. Today we'll dive into a new case. The case of Kelly Bullwinkle. Kelly Bullwinkle was born in Petaluma, Sonoma County, California, United States. She is the only child of Diana Dolores Gonzalez, a Coast Guard sergeant, and Robert. When Kelly was 3 years old, her parents divorced and she lived with her mother. Despite her busy work schedule, Diana raised Kelly with love and dedication, and they often received help from Kelly's grandparents, Dolores Fuller and Jesus Gonzalez, who often traveled from Las Cruces, New Mexico to visit. Growing up, Kelly was a quiet and shy girl, but those who knew her were captivated by her delicate features. She had a deep love for animals, especially horses. Whenever she saw a horse, her face lit up with joy, and she eagerly asked her mother to keep one as a pet. Kelly was also passionate about music. She quickly learned to play the clarinet while still in elementary school, impressing everyone with her ability to perform complex pieces with incredible skill. In 1999, as Kelly prepared to start high school, Diana was transferred to Redlands, a picturesque city in San Bernardino County, California. The family moved in with Laura, a close friend of Diana's. The relocation brought major changes to Kelly's life. She had to meet new neighbors, start at a new school, and adjust to an unfamiliar environment, all of which proved difficult for her. Redlands East Valley High School, the largest in the city, and presented its own challenges. The school was divided into cliques, athletes, leaders, and laggards, making it hard for Kelly to find her place. Even walking through the noisy cafeteria at lunchtime felt overwhelming. Kelly often felt lonely and doubted her ability to fit in with her school community. To relieve stress, she turned to reading and started keeping a personal diary, which became her trusted outlet. Over time, Kelly took up mountain biking and joined the track and field team. Her dedication to sports paid off as she began to succeed in competitions. Eventually, one of Kelly's childhood dreams came true when her mother gifted her a horse as a reward for her efforts. In her third year of high school, Kelly became friends with two classmates, Rachel Schneider and Megan LaSmith. Like many teenagers, Kelly looked up to Rachel and began imitating her style. She dyed her hair red to match Rachel's, started shopping at thrift stores, and wore the same shade of red lipstick as her. In 2001, Rachel introduced Kelly to her other friends, including Kinsey Jean Nordman. Kinsey, a senior born in 1983 in Redlands, was the only child of Bruce and Deborah Nordman. Her father, a well-known local postman, and her mother, a devoted leader of a Girl Scout group, raised Kinsey in a loving and optimistic environment. From a young age, Kinsey was described by relatives as sweet, kind, and affectionate. She had a gentle nature, enjoyed football games and reading, and was passionate about helping sick and homeless animals, often turning her home into a temporary shelter for them. Her family fully supported her interests, creating a joyful and encouraging atmosphere. Birthdays were always memorable celebrations, and family trips were filled with happiness. Bruce enjoyed spending time with Kinsey's friends and often invited them on family outings. One frequent visitor to the Nordman household was Kinsey's cousin, who taught everyone how to surf. During high school, Kinsey grew close to a classmate named Damian Matthew Guerrero, born in 1983. Damian lived in a wealthy neighborhood near Redlands. Not much was known about his family, which included his mother, stepfathers, and brother. He was known for his arrogance and fascination with Gothic culture. His signature look included makeup, black and white outfits, and a vintage 1940s style hat. Girls admired him for his dark hair and enigmatic presence, while others were intrigued by his knack for turning any topic into a philosophical discussion, making conversations with him engaging. He often quoted lines from Quentin Tarantino films, as Tarantino was his idol. Even though he was weirdo, but Damian was both hardworking and academically capable. Under Damian's influence, Kelly underwent a significant transformation. She abandoned her sporty California style and adopted a Gothic look. She developed a strong interest in writing articles about serial killers. She became interested in writing about serial killers, a subject she was very passionate about. She also became drawn to industrial bands, with Tool becoming her favorite. Her favorite movie was American Psycho. She and Damien often discussed the film's characters, Mickey and Mallory, with their classmates, praising them enthusiastically. Kelly's family disapproved of the changes in her behavior and began keeping a closer eye on her social circle. However, her cousin reacted differently. He welcomed Damien and even started visiting him frequently. The two grew close, bonding over shared interests and collections. They were particularly fascinated by a mysterious weapon Damien owned, which had once belonged to Damien's brother. Over time, Diana became increasingly concerned about her daughter's friendship with Damien. Despite her mother's strong disapproval of her relationship with Damien, Kelly refused to change her mind. This caused a rift between her and her mother, further straining their relationship. Diana believed that Kelly was only trying to mock her, provoke her, and draw attention to Kelly. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating at school that Kelly and Damien's relationship was more than just friendship. In reality, however, Damien was dating another girl, Jennifer. Jennifer, born in Redlands in 1985, was known for her bold appearance and impeccable sense of style. Damien fell for her almost instantly after their first conversation. They discovered they shared many interests, particularly in music and cinema. Jennifer attended building with Kelly, while Kinsey studied in a different building. Although different, Kelly and Kinsey quickly bonded over their shared love of writing. Eventually, Kelly joined the group formed by Kinsey, Damien, and Jennifer, who welcomed her without hesitation. Kelly began adopting not only the fashion choices, but also the behaviors of her new friends. This group displayed a deliberate disregard for social norms and seemed unafraid or even eager to be rejected by society. Immersing herself in this circle, Kelly created a virtual diary on LiveJournal under the pseudonym Anna, where she portrayed herself as a girl struggling with anorexia. Though this was untrue, Kelly was fascinated by the idea of taking on this new persona. At the same time, she began experimenting with illegal substances. Despite only dabbling in them, she started labeling herself as a banned substance addict. It seemed as though Kelly was determined to showcase her darkest, most flawed side. She deliberately became provocative and destructive. Wanting to fully embrace her new identity, she distanced herself from Rachel, who quickly noticed how negatively the group was influencing her friend. However, fractures soon developed within the group itself. The conflict was fueled by Kelly's growing and uncontrollable attraction to Damien, which Jennifer easily noticed. On top of that, Jennifer was irritated by the fact that Kelly, trying to please Damien, copied his style and behavior. The tension steadily escalated, and what had once been a normal friendship between the girls devolved into open rivalry. In 2002, the group had the opportunity to become the center of attention and spark a wave of discussions, which they seemed to enjoy. That year, Kinsey and Damien graduated from high school. Meanwhile, Kelly and Kinsey came up with the idea to attend prom together. They were not a couple, but the plan was driven by curiosity to see their classmates' reactions. They think that it could possibly create a scandal. During the party, the girls told everyone they were under the influence of banned substance and tried to persuade Damien to join them. Jennifer responded quickly, opposing the idea and urging Damien to refuse. Kelly became upset, believing Jennifer was acting out of jealousy. The tension escalated when Damien's date accused Kelly of lying, pointing out that Kelly was wearing the same shoes as Damien. This led to an exchange of insults, with emotions spiraling out of control. Then, as energetic music played, Kelly and Kinsey kissed on the dance floor, drawing the attention of their classmates. Many speculated that the kiss was merely a stunt to grab everyone's attention. A few hours later, the party ended, and with it, the friends stopped trying to show their worst sides. After starting university, Kinsey and Damien remained close friends and kept in touch with Kelly as well. They often went to the cinema, explored fairs in the city center. Among them, Kelly was the only one without a partner, and Damien was still dating Jennifer. When the trio couldn't meet in person, they stayed connected through chat, where they planned their next outings or shared music and posts they enjoyed. However, due to Jennifer's jealousy, Damien sometimes acted rudely toward Kelly when they met in public. In private, though, his behavior changed, and their interactions became much friendlier. By early 2003, Damien and Kelly confessed their mutual attraction and began a secret relationship. Kelly's happiness was hard to conceal. For Kelly, Damien was the first man who had been truly serious about her, making it difficult for her to resist him. Her life began to change dramatically. Through Kinsey, she got in touch with two local banned substance dealers, Jim and Bob. At one point, Jim and Bob demanded $100 from her to pay for banned substance, but Kelly had grown accustomed to getting them for free. As her addiction worsened, she began finding other ways to sustain her habit. She secured a part-time job at a restaurant. In the spring of 2003, Kelly and Jennifer graduated from high school, but their rivalry only intensified. Now considered a love destroyer, Kelly felt an overwhelming urge to publicly declare her relationship with Damien. She enrolled at Crafton Hills, just a 20-minute drive from her home, allowing her to stay close to Damien. Meanwhile, Jennifer was determined to turn Kelly's friends against her. Jennifer manipulated Kinsey and Damien into excluding Kelly from their group and even encouraged them to humiliate her at parties, inviting her only to mock her in front of others. That summer was a nightmare for Kelly. Her friends argued with her over trivial matters, publicly mocked her, and humiliated her. What hurt even more was that she couldn't understand why they were doing it. Despite this, Kelly, being sensitive and dependent, couldn't bring herself to cut ties with them. For the first time, she wished that Damien would leave Jennifer, but the opposite happened. Damien told Kelly their relationship was over and demanded Kelly stay out of his life. One of the people who had insulted Kelly decided to reveal her secret meetings with Damien to Jennifer, hoping to expose Damien, who Jennifer was planning to build a life with. However, even Damien's betrayals didn't come as a surprise to Jennifer. On September 2, 2003, Jennifer messaged Kelly, demanding an explanation. Kelly confessed everything and received a response filled with threats. A few days later, Kinsey and Damien came up with a cruel prank to play on Kelly. Knowing how easily she got nervous, they decided to take her to San Timoteo Canyon, also known as the Ghost Town. On September 11, while texting with Kelly, Kinsey suggested they go for a walk together. Trusting her friend, Kelly agreed. The next day, Kinsey and Damien headed to San Timoteo Canyon, equipped with a shovel. They dug a deep hole, planning to scare Kelly by making her believe they were going to kill her and bury her there. On September 13, 2003, at 4:20 p.m., Kelly told her family she was going out with friends and left in her Mazda Protégé. She had hidden a small bag of banned substance under the waistband of her pants. After stopping briefly at an ATM, she continued driving and met Kinsey. Together, they smoked and casually chatted while walking. Later, Kinsey suggested they grab a snack. As they approached Kelly's car, Damien suddenly arrived in his black Honda Civic. Surprised, Kelly asked what he was doing there. Damien says he has a plan and wants them to join in. After some convincing from her friends, Kelly reluctantly agreed to go to the canyon, even though she didn't like the ghost town. When they were already there, at some point Damien walked away from Kelly and Kinsey for a few minutes, and that's when Kelly found herself face to face with a grave and a shovel. She didn't have time to realize what happened, because Damien suddenly appeared in front of her again with a weapon in his hands. Later, the weapon activated unexpectedly. Seriously wounded, Kelly fell just a few steps from the pit. Kinsey became a witness of the scene. Damien began to justify himself, saying that everything happened by accident. Kelly was still alive at that time and was shaking convulsively. Damien, in a state of shock, handed the weapon to Kinsey and said that he could not do it again. Kinsey took the weapon and, without further ado, attacked Kelly in the head. After that, they put the body in a hole and buried it. Seeing an old orange sofa abandoned nearby by someone, Damien and Kinsey dragged it to a fresh grave and left the scene. In Kelly's car, near the Ontario Mills Shopping Centre, they abandoned the car and keys, then changed clothes and returned to Redlands in Damien's car. A little later, they had dinner together and at 9:20 p.m. went to the cinema. Diana, Kelly's mother, was not at home at that time. She had gone to the sea. Her friend Laura was outside the city. In these circumstances, no one noticed Kelly's absence. However, when Laura returned on September 15, she discovered alarming signs: unsorted mail, lights on, and hungry pets. In addition, Kelly's answering machine had accumulated messages from colleagues who were worried about her due to her absence from work. Laura called the police. Officers began searching for Kelly and found her car within a few hours. When she received news that her daughter was missing, Diana immediately called friends and acquaintances for help. They launched a search throughout the city, the San Bernardino Valley, and the desert. The search for Kelly was assisted by a Hawk helicopter provided by the Coast Guard. The police, meanwhile, interrogated everyone who knew Kelly. The first on the list of her close friends was Kinsey. During the interrogation, she provided a reliable alibi, claiming that she had not seen her friend for a long time. She also admitted that they planned to meet on September 13, but Kelly suddenly stopped communicating. So Kinsey went for a walk with Damien. In addition, she mentioned the banned substance addiction of Kelly and gave investigators the contacts of banned substance dealers Jim and Bob, who could possibly point to Kelly's whereabouts. It turned out that the two were in custody on charges of carjacking, a fact that automatically put them at the top of the list of suspects in Kelly's kidnapping. However, once they were questioned, they began to deny any involvement in her disappearance and claimed to have an alibi. The Manns were involved in a series of crimes in the Redlands area, but had nothing to do with what happened to Kelly. Nevertheless, the police obtained a warrant to search their home and then excluded them from the case. Days passed in despair. Diana took out an ad and told the media about Kelly's disappearance. Kinsey also joined the search and supported the efforts. A few days later, a group of young men were exploring San Timoteo Canyon. Something unusual caught their attention. An unpleasant smell emanated from a cliff next to an old sofa lying in the bushes. After they reported this to the police, officers immediately arrived and secured the area. Under the sofa, human remains were found sticking out of the ground. After that, the site was examined, and a cartridge case of a 9mm caliber was found during the excavation of a female body, which was urgently sent to the morgue for the appropriate forensic analysis. Days later, a preliminary autopsy report confirmed that the deceased was Kelly and that her cause of death was one of 2 bullet wounds. Diana was shocked by the terrible news. A wave of suspicion swept across Redlands as each of the young people came under scrutiny. Those questioned all became potential suspects, and rumors of Kinsey's involvement in the murder began to spread. The police searched the house where Kelly lived and confiscated her computer, on which a lot of materials for the investigation were found, hundreds of chats, threats from Jennifer, and much more. Jennifer was also interrogated, during which she denied her guilt. Simultaneously, there was no convincing evidence against her. When investigators questioned Kelly's cousin, he revealed that he had once seen Damien holding a small silver weapon. After further questioning, Damien admitted that his brother gave him a .25 caliber weapon last fall. He claimed to have thrown the weapon into a drainage well. Detectives searched the well after Damien provided its location, but found nothing. The investigation continued, and a bullet of the same caliber was later discovered in a chest of drawers. This bullet matched the cartridge case found at the crime scene. However, without the weapon, it was difficult to formally charge Damien. On November 3, 2003, the case took a significant turn. Jennifer, Damien's ex-girlfriend, went to the authorities and provided a statement about events that had occurred during the summer involving Kinsey, Damien, and herself. The following day, Kinsey was brought in for questioning. Under pressure, she confessed to being involved but claimed the situation had spiraled out of control unintentionally. Her confession provided enough evidence for an arrest, but in exchange for more information, Kinsey was allowed to return home. Once home, she told her mother everything. Her mother, Deborah, was shocked and unable to comprehend how or why her daughter could have committed murder. She was also baffled as to why the authorities had let Kinsey go. Feeling guilty, Kinsey called her boyfriend and confessed everything, including Damien's involvement. Understanding the gravity of the situation, her boyfriend reported it to the authorities. An hour later, Kinsey was arrested, followed by Damien. Both were charged with murder and faced life in prison due to their intentional use of a firearm. Their bail was set at $5 million each to ensure their presence at the trial. On February 17, 2005, the trial of Kinsey and Damien began. The prosecution argued that the crime had been carefully planned and executed with cold-blooded precision. They emphasized that this murder was far more severe than a typical teenage dispute. In his defense, Damien maintained that he never intended to harm Kelly, and claimed that Kinsey was directly responsible for Kelly's death. Kinsey's defense, on the other hand, acknowledged the enormity of her mistake, describing it as monstrous, and expressed deep remorse for causing the death of her close friend. On March 9, 2005, Kinsey was convicted of first-degree murder and using a weapon during the crime. However, the jury could not reach a unanimous decision regarding Damien's involvement, leading to a delay in his case. 2 months later, a hearing was held where the verdict was announced. The judge described the crime as one of the most tragic and senseless cases he had ever encountered. Kinsey was sentenced to 45 years in prison without the possibility of parole, and was sent to a women's correctional facility at California in Chino. In May 2005, after reaching a plea agreement, Damien was sentenced to 15 years and incarcerated at Chuckawalla Valley in Blythe. Kelly's grandparents, Dolores and Jesus, were present in the courtroom, their faces showing both sadness and relief. With a trembling voice, Jesus expressed his sorrow at being robbed of the chance to see their granddaughter grow up. Dolores shared that nothing could ever fill the void left in her life. Over time, her health declined significantly, forcing her to leave her job. In February 2014, Dolores passed away. In 2018, Damien was denied parole. However, on October 24, 2019, a special commission unexpectedly approved his parole. In March 2020, California governor reversed this decision, stating that Damien still posed a serious risk to public safety. In January 2023, Damien attended his final parole hearing and was granted parole, which reignited intense debate. County attorney voiced hope that the decision would eventually be overturned. For now, Damien remains in prison, awaiting the final outcome. Kelly Bullwinkle was a model student with a promising future. Her naivety, trust in people, and desire to be accepted by others ultimately led to her death. Kelly did not doubt the trustworthiness of her friends, even after they got her hooked on banned substance and treated her cruelly. Kinsey openly rejected her, put her in a bad light, and eventually took her life in their merciless, bloody game. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Emily Murray. Emily Murray is a college student. She was born on February 19, 1980, in Sleepy Hollow, New York. Emily lives with her parents and 3 siblings, 2 sisters and a brother. They are very close and are in constant contact with each other. Emily's father works as the director of a science center. Thanks to his job, her family lives comfortably and can afford everything they need. Emily is a gifted student with a great passion for science, especially medicine and philosophy. In addition, she is a devout Christian, like her family. Since she was a child, she has helped her parents and found ways to earn money. But she often donates what she earns to charity, leaving very little for herself. After graduating from high school, Emily enrolled in Kenyon College to continue her studies. She focuses on philosophy and hopes to work for the church and participate in various missionary activities. During this time, she also traveled to Italy, New Zealand, and Japan, with each trip related to her church charity work. In 2000, Emily entered her 3rd year of college, where she studied hard and got closer to her dream. She was actively involved in church activities and participated in youth ministry. She also envisioned a large family, imagining herself with her future husband and their children. Tragically, no one expected her life to end so suddenly. On November 3, 2000, at the college Emily attended, her roommates woke up to find that she had disappeared. The girls remembered that Emily could sometimes get caught up in her work, as there were times when she stayed late to finish an important project with a friend. Emily had worked a shift at a restaurant the night before, leading to speculation that she might have stayed late and then gone straight to college to study. Her roommates, therefore, continued their normal routine, going to work and continuing their studies, expecting to see Emily later. However, she did not return that night, and they became increasingly concerned when she failed to show up at the planned party. A few days earlier, Emily had gone to the local supermarket and bought all the necessary items, indicating that she intended to attend. Emily's friends were worried and contacted Emily's sister to check if Emily had returned to her family. However, Emily's sister said that she had not returned home either. Her sister called her parents to report that Emily was missing. It had been nearly 24 hours since Emily had gone missing, and her parents were distraught when they learned of the situation. Despite their efforts, Emily's friends were unable to find any useful information. Just a few hours after her sister's call, Emily's parents got in their car and drove to her school. At that time, a group of volunteers, including dozens of students, had searched the area for Emily, but found no trace. It was also confirmed that Emily's car was missing along with her. Emily's parents went to the university's security office to report their daughter's disappearance. However, they were disappointed to find that the staff did not care. The staff assumed she was just out for the night and said that their daughter would be back soon. The family believed that this was not Emily's normal behavior, as she always informed them of her plans. Not a day went by without her contacting family and friends. Now, she was unusually quiet and ignored all attempts to reach her. Emily's roommates accompanied the family to the security office, and all 3 emphasized that this behavior was unusual for Emily. All of Emily's belongings were still in her room, including her bank checks and a wallet full of documents and cards. This suggested that she had no intention of leaving for a long time. All of her textbooks were also left behind. Finally, the security staff agreed that a search was necessary. They decided to start by thoroughly searching Emily's room. However, they found nothing suspicious. As a result, they created a missing persons notice and began distributing flyers to students on campus. Meanwhile, Emily's family contacted the sheriff's office to report their daughter missing. The police carefully reviewed all the details surrounding Emily's disappearance and checked her room, realizing the seriousness of the situation. They began tracking her down from the evening she went missing. Emily worked at a restaurant near her school. Its proximity to the school and diverse menu made it a popular hangout for students. The restaurant was open until 2 a.m. every night. attracting a large crowd of young people. However, the police quickly realized that the late-night schedule could attract potentially dangerous individuals. Local girls knew that it was unsafe to go to the restaurant alone at night because of the many drunk and rowdy. On November 1, Emily was working her last shift at the establishment. She was well liked by everyone for her positive attitude and friendly demeanor. The police compiled a list of everyone present, as these people were likely the last witnesses to see Emily. They could provide information for the search or report any suspicious activity that night. The restaurant closed at 2 a.m., as usual. Most of the customers had left, but Emily and a few other employees stayed behind to finish their work and clean up. Among the employees was Emily's friend, a waitress, who worked with her at the restaurant. Emily's time card showed that she finished her shift at 3:07 a.m. and left the restaurant. This was confirmed by Gregory McKnight, a chef who had left earlier that night as scheduled by the staff. The staff working in the store said that at around 3 a.m., they all finished their work and started to go home. Emily's parents were frustrated by the slow pace of the investigation. Despite the collection of valuable evidence suggesting many leads to follow, some believed that Emily might have left on her own. When the police inquired about her mental health, they discovered that although she had been depressed in recent years, she did not have any serious mental health issues. This depression may have been related to her heavy responsibilities at school and work, as well as her recent breakup with her boyfriend, which further affected Emily's emotional state. After gathering all the information, the police searched Emily's dorm room. They found notes from her that contained some contradictory statements, leading them to question whether she might have taken her own life due to her depression. Emily could have made such a decision because of her mental condition. However, her family and friends dismissed this idea. They explained that during her bouts of depression, she behaved quite differently. Specifically, during those difficult times, she would cut off contact with her family and become very withdrawn, and this withdrawal increased over time. But now, things were different. Before her disappearance, she showed no signs of distress. She was still sociable, full of energy, and maintained relationships with others. In fact, she seemed fine and felt inspired by her work. The police spoke to Emily's friends, who confirmed that she had been doing well recently. She was no longer troubled by her breakup with her ex-boyfriend, and had even stopped taking the antidepressants prescribed by her doctor. Her life had improved, and she felt no need to continue the medication. During the investigation, the police found no useful information or leads. They decided to contact the FBI for assistance. The police suspected that if Emily had been kidnapped, she might have been taken across state lines. But this investigation also yielded no results. The police then spoke with Emily's ex-boyfriend. Friends described their relationship as loving, but often filled with conflict. Eventually, the couple realized they were not compatible and decided to break up. The police discovered that her ex had attended a party on the night of her disappearance. Multiple witnesses confirmed that he and Emily had been seen together. He was one of the last people to leave the restaurant in the early morning, along with other partygoers. While he may have watched over Emily's friend, there was no evidence that he intended to harm her. Throughout the evening, he spent time with Emily as a friend. During police questioning, her ex provided a verified alibi. He had left with friends and traveled to another city, quickly eliminating him from the suspect list. The police then focused on Emily's co-workers at the restaurant. Several employees noted that one co-worker had feelings for Emily and wanted to pursue a relationship with her, but she had rejected him. He was summoned to the police station for questioning, where he denied any wrongdoing, insisting that he was only friends with Emily. He mentioned that they had talked a lot the night before she went missing, as he rarely saw her compared to the other employees. Before leaving the restaurant at 11 p.m., he wished Emily well and rushed to a concert for which he had tickets. His alibi was confirmed, and he was no longer considered a suspect. The next suspect was Dave. Several girls reported that he had difficulty communicating with women. He often tried to pursue a relationship with a coworker but was rude, making many people feel uncomfortable. Dave was eventually fired from the restaurant because of his aggressive behavior. The restaurant manager, Gregory McKnight, mentioned that he had heard about Dave making inappropriate comments to other employees. Gregory found Dave's behavior suspicious and reported it to the police, thinking it might be related to Emily's disappearance. However, witnesses stated that no one had seen Dave at the restaurant the night Emily went missing. Due to his suspicious behavior, the police decided to continue investigating him. They suspected that he may have been following Emily, possibly waiting for her after her shift while hiding on the street. He was taken to the police station for questioning, where he provided an alibi that was corroborated by several witnesses, leading to his removal from the suspect list. The investigation was then suspended due to a lack of solid evidence, as all avenues of investigation had proven fruitless. Each suspect had a credible alibi. Police believe that Emily may have either escaped or taken her own life. However, they require more evidence to support this theory. In the meantime, some of Emily's close friends disagree with these possibilities. As time went on, days passed without any sign of Emily. The university campus was covered with missing person flyers featuring her picture. While everyone believed she was missing, the police realized that the crucial 48-hour window to find her alive had passed. However, the investigation was still ongoing. The family did not receive any demands from the kidnappers. There were no calls or ransom demands, so the possibility of her being kidnapped was dismissed. Due to the uncertain safety conditions at the school, students were asked to walk in pairs. To address the dangerous situation, security forces were assigned to accompany students on campus. For Emily's family, this was the most difficult period, filled with constant fear and anxiety. Her parents could not eat or sleep. They desperately searched for information about their daughter's whereabouts, but all their efforts were unsuccessful. An important discovery redirected the investigation. A month before Emily went missing, Ronald had a minor traffic accident. After the accident, the other driver got out of the car to check the damage and assist Ronald. During this time, Ronald discovered that the driver who caused the accident had several guns in the trunk of his car, which had been opened by the collision. Concerned, Ronald decided to call the police and report the incident. 2 months passed, and on December 9, 2000, officers from the sheriff's office were dispatched to a trailer park. They were supposed to inform the driver of the accident from October that he was being charged with complicity in a burglary. Thanks to Ronald's testimony, they were able to solve a series of crimes. The officers went to the address where the car's owner was registered, but found no one there. The trailer appeared to be abandoned, and next to it, they found several cars in poor condition. However, before leaving, the officers noticed another car behind the man's house that stood out from the others because it was new. The car was checked against the database, and the police discovered that it was a green car that belonged to another vehicle that was also listed as missing. Officers passed this information on to the police investigating Emily's disappearance. The most surprising aspect for the police was the identity of the owner of the trailer where Emily's car was discovered. The trailer belonged to Gregory McKnight, a chef at the restaurant where Emily worked, who had previously tried to blame his co-workers for her disappearance. The police then obtained a search warrant for the trailer. An officer entered through a window and immediately noticed a terrible smell of decay. Inside, they found bloodstains, and upon further investigation, discovered Emily Murray's body wrapped in a rug. An autopsy confirmed that she had died from a gunshot wound to the right side of her head. More than a month had passed since Emily's disappearance, and now the investigation had to inform her family of the tragic outcome. Gregory McKnight, the prime suspect, was quickly arrested and questioned. He answered briefly and vaguely and appeared very guarded, as if he were closely monitoring what he said. When the police informed Gregory that they had discovered a body in a missing car, he stopped cooperating and requested a lawyer. The situation was made easier by the fact that Gregory was already wanted for burglary, which meant he could not evade arrest and could be held while the details of Emily's death were investigated. The trailer was thoroughly examined, revealing bloodstains and a bullet hole in the bodywork, which a forensic scientist identified as the scene of the murder. By this point, there was enough evidence to conclude that Emily had been murdered in Gregory's trailer. The forensic expert would need to provide a detailed report after the autopsy. The investigation continued, and after 2 days, a major discovery was made. Forensic scientists searched the area around the trailer for a murder weapon and decided to examine a nearby well. Instead of finding a murder weapon, they discovered a human skeleton. This skeleton appeared to belong to an older person, probably a male. The identity of this second victim remains unknown. Prior to these events, a young man named Gregory Julius had gone missing in the area. A forensic expert verified this connection. The details of his disappearance matched those of Emily's case. He had been reported missing about 6 months earlier in a nearby town. According to his girlfriend, Gregory Julius had left home to attend a college party with a friend named Gregory McKnight. He was the last person known to have seen Gregory Julius alive, and Gregory McKnight was called to the station for questioning. During questioning, Gregory McKnight stated that he did not know where his friend was. At this point, a search was underway for the missing man. He said that he had attended a party with his friend, Gregory Julius. However, he claimed that they had parted ways after the party, and that he had not seen Gregory Julius since then. The police found no evidence that Gregory McKnight was involved in his friend's disappearance, so he was released. Gregory Julius's girlfriend recognized the clothing found on the body as belonging to him, and the medical examiner confirmed the identity of the body as indeed being Gregory Julius. Due to these new developments, Gregory McKnight was questioned again. He gave brief answers, carefully choosing his words, and avoided providing any substantial information. The police suspected that he was lying and hiding something, apparently trying to buy time. However, the police had strong evidence against him, as they discovered not only a body but also several bags of Gregory Julius's belongings in his trailer. Gregory McKnight was born into a dysfunctional family and grew up in Quincy, New York. At the age of 15, he was convicted of murdering a resident during a robbery and was sent to a juvenile detention facility. After his release, he married his wife, a former employee of the correctional facility where he had been held. The couple initially lived in his wife's mother's house before purchasing a trailer in Ray, Ohio. His wife said she suspected he was involved in Emily's kidnapping because he had become anxious and exhibited unusual behavior after Emily's disappearance. Despite her concerns, she tried to hold on to hope that her husband was not involved in the case. With this information, the police began to suspect that they were dealing with a dangerous killer. The prosecution collected all the items taken from Gregory McKnight's home, specifically a shovel, pruning shears, an axe, and a hunting knife. These items were sent for testing and found to have traces of Gregory Julius's DNA on them. The prosecutor sought the death penalty for Emily's murder. However, the judge ruled that the county, being the poorest and least populous in the state, could not afford a death penalty trial and could not guarantee that Gregory McKnight would receive a fair trial. As a result, the case was moved to another county, causing administrative delays. The trial did not begin until 2002. During the trial, multiple witnesses testified that Gregory McKnight had secret romantic feelings for Emily, suggesting that he may have been obsessed with her, although he appeared to have suppressed those feelings. Gregory McKnight often defended Emily when other boys bothered her. Generally, he seemed to be a friendly person. The restaurant's bartender mentioned that after Emily went missing, Gregory McKnight told him that he felt she was dead. Other co-workers noted that Gregory McKnight was seen leaving with Emily that night. The prosecution argued that Gregory McKnight knew it was Emily's last shift at the restaurant, which prompted his actions. They believed he met her after work and may have given her a ride home. During that ride, he confessed his feelings for Emily, but when she rejected him, he kidnapped her and then murdered her. Unlike the Emily Murray case, there were fewer witnesses in the Gregory Julius case. Evidence was also limited, but new information emerged during the investigation. It was discovered that the car driven by Gregory Julius had been sold shortly after his disappearance. Gregory McKnight's car was identified, and blood found in the back seat matched Gregory Julius's DNA, implicating Gregory McKnight in Gregory Julius's death. However, the motive for killing Gregory Julius remained unclear. With the evidence being so strong, the attorneys did not attempt to argue that Gregory McKnight was innocent and instead chose a different strategy. The defense argued that Gregory McKnight was struggling with mental health issues, claiming that he was unable to control his actions. Additionally, they argued that the victim, Emily, was mentally unstable and was contemplating ending her life, asserting that Gregory McKnight had helped her do so. This notion angered Emily's parents, who were deeply offended by the attorney's argument, as Emily was deeply religious and would never choose to end her life voluntarily. Despite the defense's various tactics, the jury ultimately sided with the prosecution. Gregory McKnight was convicted of first-degree murder for Emily's death, as well as kidnapping and burglary. He faces the death penalty. Emily's family is religious and opposed to the death penalty. However, Gregory McKnight was sentenced to death by lethal injection for the murder of Emily, along with a life sentence for the murder of Gregory Julius, 10 years for kidnapping, and a year and a half for burglary. After his conviction, he filed several appeals, all of which were unsuccessful. More than 20 years have passed, but Gregory McKnight is still alive. He expressed his desire to be executed, stating that he wanted to die for his crimes, but later changed his mind. In 2020, Gregory McKnight began arguing that his sentence was unjust due to racial bias in his trial. He alleged that the all-white jury treated him unfairly and insulted him. Emily's parents remain confused about why Gregory McKnight killed their daughter and do not believe his assertions of his obsession with her. They felt that Gregory McKnight harbored resentment towards the college students he worked with at the restaurant, many of whom came from wealthy families, including Emily, whom he chose to take revenge on. However, because of their religious beliefs, Emily's parents believed that her death was not in vain, as it led to the arrest of Gregory McKnight and held him accountable for all the sins he committed, ultimately saving the lives of others. In honor of Emily, they planted a tree near the university. Every year on November 2 and on her birthday, they release a red balloon into the sky in her memory. The family also plans to scatter the rest of Emily's ashes, which are currently kept in an urn at home. The first half of her ashes was buried in the church cemetery.